9 Tales of Darkness. Dr. Swanson let out a weary sigh as she turned her attention to her son, Jonathan. Despite his intelligence and excellent health, the boy's growth had been stunted by a degenerative bone disease he had had since birth. Dr. Swanson, wearing a lab coat, glanced at a meticulously crafted wooden sculpture that her son had made for her, a testament to his talent and his silent expression of affection. Shaking her head, Dr. Swanson muttered to herself. No time to waste these distractions. With a dismissive wave of her hand, she pushed the sculpture off her cluttered desk. Disregarding Jonathan's efforts, it was evident that she barely cared for him, showing no love for her own son. His eyes filled with unspoken hurt as he looked to his mother. He tried to communicate his disappointment, but his silence prevented him from uttering a single word. He stood there, his presence a constant reminder of her indifference. Dr. Swanson's gaze briefly met Jonathan's, her voice cold and distant. I have important work to do. Leave me be, she said, shooing him away with an impatient gesture, as if he were an unwanted presence in her life. Jonathan, his heart heavy with unexpressed emotion, silently turned and left the room, his longing for affection and understanding hanging in the air. Dr. Swanson's colleague, Janos, couldn't bear witnessing her unnecessary cruelty towards Jonathan any longer. He mustered up the courage to speak his mind. Amanda, you're being needlessly cruel to the boy. He's your son, after all. You should show him some compassion, he implored. Concern edged across his face. Compassion? That's a luxury I can't afford. Besides, sometimes I wish I'd never had him in the first place, she muttered bitterly, unaware that her son had heard every word. Amanda, that's an awful thing to say. He's just a boy. He deserves some love and care. Meanwhile, Jonathan retreated to his room, the weight of his mother's words and the pain of his loneliness consuming him from within, all the way without. Clutching a dagger given to him by his late father, he contemplated ending his suffering. Thoughts of reuniting with his father and escaping the torment of his current existence clouded his mind. However, just as he was on the brink of making a devastating choice, the blaring sound of alarms reverberated throughout the facility. The sudden commotion startled Jonathan, interrupting his dark thoughts. He knew little about the inner workings of the facility, but a foreboding feeling washed over him, urging him to investigate. Now, with the alarms blaring, Jonathan's path takes an unexpected turn. In the heart of the main laboratory, amidst the blaring alarms and frantic activity, an eerie presence materialized, standing tall and naked. The figure before them was a stark contrast to human form. Her features revealed a savage and menacing countenance, unmistakably belonging to a creature of myth, a vicious black-furred fox with 9 imposing tails. The air crackled with tension as her eyes emitted a crimson glow, exuding an otherworldly aura. With lightning speed, she lunged towards one of the guards, her inhuman strength overpowering him in an instant. A piercing scream filled the room, quickly silenced by the ferocious creature's savage onslaught. Blood dripped from her elongated fangs as she tore into her victim, a grotesque display of her primal hunger. With ruthless precision, she ripped the guard's liver from his body, savoring it in a grisly feast. The sight was both horrifying and mesmerizing. The room hushed in shock and terror. As the others scrambled to regain control of the situation, they aimed their tranquilizer guns at the 9-tailed beast, hoping to subdue her. But their actions only fueled her rage. With a snarl that reverberated with power, she narrowed those crimson orbs, her long black hair cascading around her like a cloak. The tails behind her swayed with menacing grace, thick and lush in their darkness. To the guards' dismay, their weapons failed them. Function exploding in their hands, the force flinging them back. With the blast, these men groaned in pain, their futile attempts to to stop the creature only deepening their peril. In a horrifying display of raw power and feral savagery, the nine-tailed creature known as Kyofu swiftly dispatched the guards with ruthless efficiency. 10 men, armed, trained, became helpless victims. In the span of mere moments, limbs were torn asunder, flesh rent apart, and life force extinguished in a grotesque dance of carnage. Yet amidst the chaos, one determined man managed to find a small opening, a brief moment of opportunity. With a steady hand and a sense of desperation, he unleashed a barrage of tranquilizer darts at the formidable creature, injecting a dosage potent enough to immobilize 2 massive elephants. A triumphant yell escaped his lips, mingling with Kyofu's screech of pain and fury. For a moment, the air seemed to hold its breath, as if even the very walls of the facility recoiled at the sight of such brutality. Kyofu's body trembled, her once imposing figure now faltering under the influence of the powerful tranquilizer. With a final defiant scowl, she collapsed to the floor, her 9 tails splayed around her like a fallen empire. Dr. Swanson, though accustomed to the world of science and experimentation, found herself in the grip of an overwhelming mix of despair and awe. At this moment, the side of the hallway littered with dismembered bodies and the remnants of Kyofu's relentless assault seared into her memory, forever etching its trauma upon her soul. Yet with a resolute determination that bordered on madness, she commanded her remaining subordinates to transport the incapacitated Yokai back to her containment cell. Her obsession was study and control, undeterred by the murderous bloodshed. Time passed in a silent, melancholic rhythm as Jonathan immersed himself in the solace of wood carving. The intricate carvings took another shape under his skilled hands, providing him with an escape from the grim reality that surrounded him. Unbeknownst to him, his mother, Dr. Swanson, stood nearby, her gaze fixed upon a massive black uchikaki, which is a massive type outer kimono, mainly worn during formal affairs or even weddings, or also by nobility, at least from certain feudal periods. This thing was adorned with delicate blue trim. It was black. Its size was extraordinary, far too grand for any human being to wear. Janos, Dr. Swanson's colleague, approached her with curiosity in his eyes. "Amanda, what do you think this garment holds? What properties do you think it possesses?" He was obviously fascinated, his voice laden with anticipation. Dr. Swanson carefully hung the uchikaki on a specially crafted hanger embedded within the wall. Her expression tinged with uncertainty. "I cannot say for certain. All I know is that it once belonged to the abomination that has claimed the lives of over 60 men in a span of less than 2 weeks," she replied, her voice both tinged with fear, fatigue, and fascination. "Our superiors demand answers swiftly. We must find a way to uncover the secrets behind this creature and its connection to that garment," he urged, his voice laden with a sense of impending consequence. "They will have their answers soon enough. Patience, Janos," she replied, a hint of confidence in her voice. Jonathan, caught in his mother's gaze, felt a pang of curiosity stir within him. However, he knew better than to reveal his intrigue. His mother's sigh echoed in the room as she spoke, her tone condescending. "Affairs such as these are beyond the grasp of a tiny mind like yours. Leave us," she commanded, her words carrying an air of dismissal. The boy obeyed, concealing his burgeoning fascination and keeping his thoughts locked away, the veil of secrecy surrounding the uchikaki, as well as the enigmatic creature which had piqued his curiosity even further, even as he retreated back into his world of silence and solitude. With unwavering patience, Jonathan maneuvered through the facility, his keen eyes taking note of every hidden camera and security measure. He became a ghost, vanishing into the shadows, leaving no trace of his presence. 3 weeks of cautious observation and a stealthy movement brought him closer to the heart of the restricted area, where few held clearance to enter. Hiding behind the cover of darkness, he trailed 2 guards as they made their way towards a chamber, seldom seen by outsiders. The sight that awaited him there sent a shiver down his spine. Bound to a cold, sterile bed lay a woman of ethereal beauty. Her naked form stretched out in captivity, her height surpassed human limits, marking her as something otherworldly. It was her eyes that struck Jonathan with a mixture of awe and dread. Piercing, mesmerizing orbs that betrayed her inhuman nature. The guards, driven by a vengeful rage, subjected the captive to a twisted form of torment. Armed with tranquilizer guns, they took turns, firing darts into her defenseless body. The orders forbade the use of live ammunition for obvious reasons. They needed her alive. But their actions carried a palpable sense of retribution for their fallen comrades. Each dart that pierced her flesh brought a fleeting semblance of sedation and pain, as well as frustration to her exquisite features. His heart, Jonathan's heart, pounded in his chest as he watched, his sense of helplessness contrasting sharply with his burgeoning determination. He knew that revealing himself would spell disaster, not only for the mysterious woman, but also for his own fragile existence. So he remained hidden, a silent witness to the cruelty inflicted upon her. In this perilous game of hidden truths, he was unsure of what he would find. The night settled, the guards retreated, leaving the woman alone in her desolate cell. A snarl of frustration escaped her lips, her ethereal beauty now marred by the chains that bound her. It was this moment that Jonathan, silent and invisible, approached, his heart pounding with both fear and anticipation. He prepared for this encounter, bringing food from his room in a daring act of defiance against the oppressive rules around him. With cautious eyes, he entered the cell, his hands held up in a gesture of peace, his eyes pleading for understanding. The woman's crimson gaze locked on to him, initially skeptical of his intentions, yet as she observed the youth before her, a hint of recognition flickered across her features. She regarded him with a mix of disdain and curiosity, her towering features, even chained down, dwarfing his small frame. Despite the danger that loomed, Jonathan remained resolute, his unwavering gaze conveying his earnestness. Her scoff betrayed her disbelief, an audible dismissal of his intentions. However, as her eyes delved deeper into the depths of his youth, a glimmer of empathy danced within her gaze, hidden beneath layers of pain and bitterness. The air crackled with tension as their eyes locked, a silent conversation unfolding between them. For Jonathan, the allure of this otherworldly creature tugged at his heart, distracting him from the peril that surrounded them. And for the woman, his vulnerability stirred memories of the loved one she had lost, buried deep within the recesses of her tortured soul. As the souls of the fallen men whispered their tales into the air, the woman's senses heightened, allowing her to grasp the depth of Jonathan's predicament. Memories of her own son, Hanto, flooded her mind, reminding her of the struggles he faced as a mute child, a reflection of their shared heritage. A wave of empathy washed over her, softening her otherwise hardened features. With a voice tinged with both caution and understanding, the woman spoke to Jonathan, her words carrying the weight of her own experiences. "I will not harm you," she murmured, her voice a melodic mixture of warning and solace. "But you are playing a dangerous game by being here, young one." Her crimson eyes met his, a silent understanding that transcended words. In that moment, the shared bond of their muteness, him of course literally being mute and her being confined, it seemed to bridge the gap between them. Her captivity had twisted her spirit. Her heart still held remnants of compassion for the vulnerability she saw in the boy before her. She spoke softly, her tone mixed with a mix of concern as well as a veiled warning. "You must be careful. for the darkness that surrounds me seems in every corner of this facility. It may consume you if you are not more vigilant. He arched an eyebrow, his lack of understanding apparent on his face. Sensing his confusion, the woman let out a weary sigh and explained, "The darkness I speak of is not within me, but rather the malicious intentions of those who reside in this place." He shrugged, his determination unwavering. He extended his hand, offering the woman the meager sustenance he had brought. It was a simple gesture, a sign of sympathy and care. The woman's laughter echoed in the confines of the cell, tinged with both amusement and a hint of affection. "You're adorable, but also foolish." She chuckled, her voice carrying a note of fondness despite the circumstances. Her body, restrained by chains, allowed her to limited movement. She gratefully accepted the food offered to her, her hands delicately taking hold of the nourishment. In that moment, a glimmer of gratitude danced in her eyes, overshadowing the pain and bitterness that had consumed her for so long. The boy's act of kindness, born from his own suffering, resonated with her on a profound level, stirring the dormant embers of compassion within her fractured soul. And they stood there, connected by the simplicity of a shared meal, an unspoken understanding beginning to blossom. Their individual journeys, entwined by fate, hinted at the possibility of finding solace and companionship in the most unexpected of places. The woman admitted her weakened state, acknowledging the toll her captivity had taken on her. She also possessed, however, an uncanny awareness of John's efforts to reach her, leaving him visibly surprised. With a quizzical expression, he wordlessly questioned how she knew of his attempts. Rolling her eyes, the woman simply dismissed his unspoken query. "I simply know. Listen to me and follow my instructions," her voice laced with a mixture of exasperation and amusement. She instructed him to bring her food each night for the next 3 nights, her tone shifting from casual to stern. The boy nodded slowly, recognizing the gravity of the task ahead. There was an unspoken command that their interaction had been deeper than he could really grasp of the implications. Though he was aware of the manipulation of that manipulative nature of the woman, very much so of the woman before him, her allure and the legends that surrounded her had not gone unnoticed. However, still, beneath her captivating exterior, he sensed the sincerity in her words. "Be careful," she warned. Her expression turned serious. Her eyes bore into his with that piercing intensity. Her voice carried a weight that conveyed the danger lurking within the facility. Despite the complexities of their circumstances, he understood her cautionary words, held genuine concern. The boy found himself torn between curiosity and trepidation. He knew he was venturing into unknown territory, walking a path fraught with unknown dangers. Yet that bond seemed to make it worthwhile. It was an unknown bond, which quite literally was a desire to break free from their respective confines. Dr. Amanda Swanson's smirk lingered as she monitored the surveillance cameras, observing her son's movements with a twisted satisfaction. Janos, filled with growing concern, demanded that she intervene and stop her own son, but Dr. Swanson's response was chillingly callous. "Why should I stop him? He'll find his way to her, and when he does, I'll make sure he's trapped in a cell with that creature, and she'll tear him to shreds. Why do you hate your own son?" "Hate? No. He's just a nuisance. I want him gone. Out of my life, out of my way." Trapped in a powerless situation, Dr. Swanson's authority, of course, became Janos, overshadowed his own concerns. The depths of her depravity became all too apparent. He had thought the woman attractive at one time, but now he thought of her as a monster, a demon. The research they were conducting, forbidden by both moral and legal standards, understandably, or working for a black ops type situation or a very dark firm, they tied his hands, leaving him with no recourse but to witness the unfolding tragedy. In this perverse web of betrayal and manipulation, Dr. Swanson reveled in her sinister game, determined to orchestrate the demise of her own flesh and blood. The lines between love, hatred, and twisted ambition blurred, creating a shadow of the lives of those involved, pushing the boundaries of the darkness that dwelled within the human soul. As Jonathan extended his hand to offer the food, his world was turned upside down in a moment. A set of bars materialized on the floor, out of nowhere, flinging him into the cell alongside the captive creature. The chains that had restrained her were now unbound, and she transformed into a towering, fox-headed creature. Her claws menacingly extended. Yet amidst the imminent danger, she managed to regain control and shifted back into her humanoid form. The woman sighed. Her eyes filled with a mix of exasperation and unexpected tenderness. "You're incredibly stupid and terribly unlucky," she remarked, her voice a blend of recognition and fondness. Jonathan, taken aback by her words, stared at her with a mixture of fear and confusion. She continued, her voice laced with a peculiar affection. "But you have managed to awaken something within me that I thought was long since buried. Your presence, it reminds me of someone I lost, a son and a husband. It's both painful and bittersweet." Jonathan, of course, unable to speak, met her gaze, his eyes reflecting a mixture of curiosity and a glimmer of hope. He couldn't comprehend fully the complexity of their connection, but he sensed there was more to this enigmatic creature than just the stories of terror surrounding her. He raised an eyebrow, still perplexed by the situation unfolding before him. A towering woman, her features partially hidden by her flowing hair. She dismissively waved him off, pinching her nose in apparent frustration. She addressed him, referring to his name as something ridiculous and foreign. "I won't harm you, Jonathan," she assured him, her voice carrying a hint of amusement. "In fact, I have plans for you. Even though I am uncertain of what they might be, consider yourself lucky, for most men who encounter me surrender not only to their souls, but their livers as well." He rolled his eyes, his expression displaying a mix of skepticism and defiance. The Nogitsune, undeterred, let out a hearty laugh and playfully poked his cheek. "You need to learn to lighten up and live a little," she said. Her voice was laced with a touch of mischief. Though still cautious, Jonathan felt a flicker of intrigue and an unexpected pull of camaraderie with this enigmatic creature. Most men, of course, would feel this type of affair. He couldn't deny the magnetic pull she had on him. And uncertain as he was of their future seeming, he was about to embark on a journey that would be testing his resilience, as well as unraveling the mysteries of his own existence. He wrote on a piece of paper expressing his frustration and disbelief at being trapped with a giant 8-foot fox woman who seemed to have a twisted sense of humor. Kyofu, she read his words and she burst into genuine laughter. "You truly remind me of my son, Jonathan." Her laughter subsided, and she reached out, grabbing the boy gently with her long fingers, pulling him into her lap. Her cascading black hair seemed to create a comforting sanctuary around them. "You know, I have heard whispers carried by the wind about your mother's wicked plans. She might have wanted me to devour you, but rest assured, it won't be in the way that wretched Gaijin hag had intended." Jonathan felt a mixture of fear and curiosity as he listened to Kyofu's words. Her voice carried a touch of melancholy, making him uncertain of her true intentions. He wrote on a piece of paper, "What do you mean? Are you going to eat me too?" Kyofu's eyes softened as she gently stroked his cheek. "Oh, my dear boy, you have nothing to fear from me. We are connected now, And I have plans for you. Plans that will defy your mother's darkest desires and begin her worst nightmares. He rolled the paper. What do you mean? How can I trust you? Kyofu's arm tightened around Jonathan's waist, her grip firm but careful not to cause him harm. In response to his question, she conveyed that he would be foolish to trust her, yet in the end he had no other choice. He sighed, realizing the truth in their words. He rolled the paper about the large kimono he had seen in his mother's office, speculating that it belonged to the woman he was talking to. A flicker of anger ignited in Kyofu's crimson glowing eyes as her grip tightened further. She whispered softly that his mother had broken a taboo by taking what had rightfully belonged to her. Determination burned in her gaze and her voice. She vowed to reclaim it. He nodded silently, understanding the gravity of the situation. However, his heart froze as Kyofu's hand ran along his knee, and she uttered words that sent a chill down his spine. You are coming with me, Jonathan. His eyes widened in a mixture of fear and confusion. He was unsure of what awaited him, trapped between his mother's sinister plans and Kyofu's very enigmatic intentions. Dr. Swanson slammed her laptop against the wall, causing Janos to jump in surprise. What the hell is wrong with that thing? She exclaims, pointing to the monitor, showing the interaction with the Nogatsune, and Jonathan. It's not supposed to be acting like that. It's supposed to be tearing him apart. I don't understand it, he says, his voice quiet with disgust. That thing is an abomination, but it seems to have some attachment to the boy. I don't care what sort of attachment it has. It's not supposed to have any kind of emotional connection. That's not how these things work. Perhaps your son reminds the creature of someone from his past. Someone it had a connection with. You may be right, Janos. These creatures, as seductive and violent as they are, can sometimes form relationships with humans they find intriguing. It's possible that my wretched son has triggered some sort of reminiscence in this creature. If that's the case, it might explain why it hadn't torn him apart yet. But it doesn't change the fact it poses a great threat to our own operation, as well as the lives of everyone here. We need to find a way to separate them. The guards make a futile attempt to do so, but the outcome is as expected. Dozens of men are torn apart to pieces, with one unfortunate soul being eviscerated while the Nogatsune casually feasts on his liver before the horrified eyes of his comrades. She then callously hurls his severed head and body through the cell bars. Another she grabs and rips his manhood off with zero remorse. The man convulses and bleeds out. The Nogatsune cackles. And she says that the man sounds like dying children in his screams. The remaining guards, demoralized and terrified, activate the lab's containment field, leaving Jonathan traumatized and alone with Kyofu. Later on, the woman insists with her anger and concern evident in her voice, as she says to the boy, "You need to eat. You have not eaten in 2 days." Jonathan is repulsed, his eyes fixed on the gruesome sight of, even now they've just barely started cleaning up the bodies. The woman very calmly cooks a piece of the liver that was left in her hands, and she offers it to him. Reluctantly, he takes a piece of liver and slowly brings it to his mouth, battling his revulsion. He understands if he doesn't eat, he will die. And with this, the kitsune's 9 tails elegantly retract into her body, and her voluminous mane of hair flows around the room like a living entity. As Jonathan reluctantly consumes the liver, the woman gently places him in her lap, her hair enveloping him, creating an almost suffocating embrace. With a soft whisper, she nuzzles against the mute boy and reveals her plan. The time to escape will come soon, she murmurs, her voice filled with both determination and affection. Her right arm hooks or locks firmly around him, pulling him closer to her. He looks up at Kyofu, his eyes filled with curiosity and unspoken questions. Sensing his spirit's inquiries, the Nogitsune lets out a sigh before finally responding, explaining further of earlier statements. Your soul reminds me of two individuals, she explains, her voice tinged with a mixture of nostalgia and sadness. My son Hanto, and my husband Sato. In a different time, I was a different person. Naive and foolish. Yes, perhaps I would have spared you otherwise, she says, offering a very sad smile, sensing his unanswered question. However, I could not leave you with more questions than answers. He simply nods, understanding the weight of her words. Her eyes narrow as she looks down at the boy, her voice filled with a mixture of determination and warning. What if you don't want to go with me? It doesn't matter. You don't have a choice in the matter at all. You know too much, and you've become entangled in my affairs. I'm staking my claim, and you will accompany me. Wherever the winds will take us, whether you're frightened or not, it makes no difference. You belong to me now. Her eyes bore into the boy's, her gaze intense, yet filled with a mix of longing and determination. The room seemed to grow silent as she leaned closer, her long slender fingers gently caressing his cheek. The touch of her finger sent shivers down his spine. In a soft yet commanding voice, Kyofu began to unravel the story of Sato, a man who held an intimate understanding of her kind and others like her. The man had worked for months to afford to have her Yoshikaki made. She spoke of the enchantment she personally bestowed upon the stolen garment, a powerful artifact that had been wrongfully taken from her by his disgusting mother. Her touch lingered on his cheek as she revealed her plans, her words laced with both anticipation and a touch of sadness. Once she retrieved the enchanted garment, she intended to take him with her. Wherever the wind may lead, the idea of venturing into the unknown with this enigmatic creature filled him with a mixture of curiosity and fear. With a nonchalant shrug, she emphasized her claim on him, her eyes glinting with an unmistakable possessiveness. The gentle breeze blowed or rustled through her flowing black hair, surrounding them both, cocooning them in otherworldly embrace. He couldn't help but wonder if this was all a playful game to her, or a genuine desire to forge a bond with him. His unease grew. She seemed to sense his fear, and she dismissed it as isn't inconsequential at all to her. His presence had somehow soothed the raging turmoil within her, as she saw him as her companion, her anchor in a world of chaos. Regardless of his doubts, he now belonged to her, and she was resolute in claiming him as her own. His heart raced, his mind filled with a whirlwind of emotions. He was torn between the mysterious lure of this entity and the instinctive fear that gnawed at his core. Little did he know that his journey would be a test of just that: trust, courage, and unveiling of secrets that lay dormant within their intertwined destinies. Dr. Swanson's eyes widened in a mixture of shock and awe. She witnessed the horrifying spectacle unfold on the monitors. Dozens of well-trained men fell within mere moments, their lives destroyed or extinguished by the deadly prowess of the massive Nogitsune. Her voice trembled as she whispered in disbelief, "This is beyond anything I've ever seen." In the chilling display, the Nogitsune locked eyes with one of the men, a sinister glint in her eyes, or her gaze. A wicked smile danced upon her lips, as if she held some inexplicable power over him. To Dr. Swanson, her horror, the man, seemingly entranced, turned on his comrades and began firing upon them. Tears streamed down her face as she gasped, "What have we unleashed?" Janos, overcame with a mixture of fear and anger, clenched his fist tightly. He could barely contain his rage as he shouted, "We can't let her continue. We have to eliminate her now." "You're right, Janos. We can't let her wreak any more havoc. We'll put an end to this, no matter the cost." As they faced the impending confrontation with the creature they had unwittingly unleashed, Both Dr. Swanson and Janos knew that their actions would have dire consequences. The battle against the Nogitsune would test their limits, challenging their ethics and resolve, as they sought to bring an end to the chaos that had just consumed their lives. Whispering in John's ear, Kyofu's voice carries a mixture of anticipation and determination. She expresses that the time for waiting has come to an end. In her swift motion, she sweeps him up in a powerful arm, holding him close to her. Her form undergoes transformation shift. The emergence of her 9 tails from her body signals the growing intensity of her power. Her once humanoid face takes on a more animalistic features, mirroring the ferocity within. With John securely wrapped in her tails, the creature moves through the corridors with calculated grace, leaving a trail of devastation in their wake. An unfortunate soul who crossed her path is met with a swift and merciless demise, the stream becoming a bloodbath as she effortlessly tears apart those who dare to challenge her. Meanwhile, Janos, recognizing the futility of their early attempts to subdue her, takes desperate measures to ensure their own safety. He quickly secures their door, borrowing any entry from the outside world. His voice carries a mixture of fear and resignation as he admits, "None of our early experiments worked. Bright lights, dogs, all futile against her. We underestimated her." As chaos engulfs the facility, the scent of burning flesh fills the air. Dark flames consume different sections of the building, leaving those trapped within with no chance of escape. The sheer magnitude of destruction brought by Kyofu becomes a grim testament to the unstoppable force she has become. Amidst the turmoil, John remains bewildered and fearful, held in the grasp of this fearsome creature who has spared him. The world around him descends into chaos and darkness, and he can only hope to survive this harrowing ordeal. As Kyofu's destructive power intensifies, even the strongest metal doors and cages crumble before her black fire. The suffering and deaths of those around her seem to fuel her strength and resolve. In the midst of the chaos, Dr. Swanson feels her mind and sanity slipping, overwhelmed by the horrors unfolding before her eyes. Tearfully, she confesses, "This is all my son's fault." Janos, fueled by anger and frustration, vehemently disagrees. He confronts Dr. Swanson, his voice laced with indignation. "No, it's not your son's fault. It's you. It's your insatiable obsession with things that should have been left alone." In a fit of desperation, frustration, and just fear and rage, the woman slaps Janos across the face in a futile attempt to deflect blame. "It was your obsession too," she accuses, her voice filled with bitter regret. However, their argument is abruptly cut short as the metal door to their hiding spot succumbs to the scorching black fire, melting away like wax before flame. The barrier that had offered them a fleeting sense of security now is gone, leaving them exposed and vulnerable to the wrath of the beast that stands before them. Fear grips their hearts as they realize there is no escape from the impending chaos. The colossal fox-like creature, standing nearly as tall, or actually as tall, as a full-grown tiger, fixates its gaze on Janos and Dr. Swanson. With an eerie silence, it pounces upon Janos, its massive claws tearing flesh and bone, as if they were mere paper. Janus's desperate screams fill the air, mingling with the gruesome sounds of ripping flesh and crunching bones. The creature's razor-sharp teeth sink into Janos' torso, tearing away chunks of his body, exposing his organs. Dr. Swanson, paralyzed by fear, curls up in a corner, her body trembling uncontrollably. Tears begin to stream down her face as she witnesses the brutal demise of her colleague. She can hardly believe her eyes as the creature feasts upon his torn flesh and devours his liver with a grotesque hunger. The sight fills her with a mix of terror, revulsion, and overwhelming despair. Her cries reverberate through the empty corridors of the facility, a haunting echo of the atrocities that have unfolded. In that moment, Dr. Swanson realizes the magnitude of the horror she has unleashed and the consequences of her insatiable curiosity. The fiery transformation of the beast reveals a naked woman's body standing boldly before the woman, who is trembling, almost mad at this point. Kyofu, now in human form, scoops up the protesting John and places a calming hand upon his forehead. As if touched by ethereal energy, his body relaxes and he falls unconscious in her arms. Kyofu very gently lays him down on the floor, ensuring his safety. Crouching before the weeping woman, she narrows her eyes, her gaze piercing through the depths of the doctor's despair. With a slight tilt of her head, she speaks softly, her voice carrying an undertone of sinister satisfaction. She reveals her knowledge of the life insurance policy the doctor had taken out on her own son, a desperate plea for his untimely demise. Her fanged teeth become apparent as she leans closer, her voice dripping with menace. She mocks the doctor's misguided intentions, suggesting that the insurance policy should have been placed on herself instead. In the face of Dr. Swanson's anguished screams, Kyofu smirks, relishing in the torment she has inflicted upon the once powerful woman. With a chilling calmness, she reveals her ultimate desire to witness the doctor's suffering, to revel in the depths of her anguish. "Why would you wish such a thing?" the woman angrily asks the creature before her. The Nogutsune looks calmly to the black uchikake with the blue trim hanging. She bares her teeth angrily as she calmly places the garment on. It is large even for her 8-foot form to a degree, as it was meant to be. "First, you dared to steal what was mine, and then you dared to kidnap me from the shrine where I was hibernating." Kyofu responds. She scowls and continues. "And the second thing was thinking you could dare torture me and expect to get away with it." She then tenderly gathers Jonathan to her, embracing him tightly as she looks down to the terrified scientist. "You should never have crossed me," she says with a chilling tone. "You brought this upon yourself, and now you will suffer the consequences." Swanson, consumed by her own self-interest, fails to even notice her son in Kyofu's embrace. She unselfishly asks what these consequences will be. The yokai smirks, her eyes glinting with a mixture of amusement and malice. Kyofu then very gently wraps her uchikake around Jonathan, cradling him close to her chest. She closes her eyes, savoring the warmth of the boy against her. After a tense moment of silence, she opens her eyes and looks down at him. "You will live, Jonathan," she says softly, her voice filled with a mixture of affection and sadness. "You will know what it is like to be loved, adored, and desired. That is my gift to you." "What about me?" Swanson chokes out. The creature's lips curl into a cruel smile, her eyes gleaming with malice. "You, on the other hand, will face the consequences of your actions. You will lose everything, your loved ones, your position, your sanity. And when your time comes, I will be there to claim your soul," she says, that Asian accent lashing out like a whip. The creature hugs Jonathan tightly, or more like tight her, how could I say that if you know what I'm saying, as if it were her own flesh and blood. Her grip is possessive, protective, and in an instant they both vanish in a swirling vortex of black fire, leaving behind a traumatized Dr. Swanson, alone and shattered in the aftermath of her dark dealings. The two materialize outside the laboratory, where they are met by a formidable display of military personnel. Dozens of soldiers, armed to the teeth, form a defensive line in front of them. Armored vehicles loom in the background, a symbol of the military's readiness to face any threat. A wicked smile spreads across Kyofu's face. Her eyes are burning with a sinister mixture of hatred and intent. She tightens her grip on Jonathan, her sheer strength making him feel small and insignificant in comparison. Her uchikake, as well as hair and tails, billow in the wind. This is animated by a supernatural force. Gee, you think? With a sudden burst of power, she extends her free hand, conjuring blazing foxfire that dances between her fingers. The air crackles with dark energy as the soldiers scream in terror as the flames engulf, their bodies melting like wax under an intense heat. The armored vehicle nearby is torn apart by an explosive force, shrapnel and flames, scattering in all directions. In the twisted creature's eyes, there's a twisted, perverted delight, a chaotic mischief that revels in the mayhem and death unfolding before her. She takes pleasure in the chaos she has unleashed, relishing the fear and suffering she has caused. Her actions are driven by a deep-rooted hunger for revenge, and in this moment, she is savoring every ounce of that dark feeling and power. Jonathan can only watch in awe and terror, his heart pounding in his chest as he witnesses the unleashed fury of the vengeful Nogitsune. He realizes that he is now entangled in a world of darkness and uncertainty, held captive by a being whose power and malevolence are beyond comprehension. She calmly strides through the scene of carnage, the suffering and death. To those around her seem to fuel her power, and this is truly the fact, it does. The boy is unable to speak. He can only express his horror through his wide, terrified eyes. He watches in disbelief as one man, driven by desperation, shoot Kyofu in the back of the head. In a display of astonishing reflexes, her free hand morphs into a massive furry claw, catching the bullet before it can even reach the intended target. With an air of casual nonchalance, she casually acknowledges the man's attempt, remarking that he at least had the intelligence to aim for her head. She tosses the bullets aside, her gaze shifting to the man with a chilling intensity. Without hesitation, she plunges her claws into the man's side, tearing out his liver with a swift, brutal motion. The man's life ends abruptly, succumbing to shock induced by the unimaginable pain. Her bloody lips curl up into a soft, unsettling smile as she gazes down at Jonathan. She leans close, whispering into his ear that she can sense his excitement, her words carrying a tantalizing and dangerous tone, hinting the dark desires that reside within inside of her. Her hand returns to its normal form as she runs her fingers through Jonathan's blonde hair, a gesture that contrasts with the violence and bloodshed surrounding them. She holds him protectively, sheltering him in the folds of her long flowing robes. Amidst the grim scene of death and burning bodies, an old man emerges, his filthy tattered robes contrasting with the chaos around him. With a raised eyebrow, he jestingly asks Kyofu, "My dear, after such a delightful feast, do you crave fava beans or a Chianti?" Her face contorts with a mixture of rage and amusement. 3 distinctive stripes appear on each of her cheeks, and her massive tails sway in the wind along with her impossibly long hair. "Tanaka, I am not in the mood for your foolish banter." "Ah, the chaos and death have drawn me here, my dear, but fear not. I have no intentions of interfering with your grand performance." He smirks knowingly as his gaze falls upon Jonathan, who is tightly clutched in Kyofu's arm. She narrows her eyes and swiftly covers the boy with her flowing sleeve, a protective gesture. "He is not your concern, Tanaka," she declares, her voice laced with a warning. The man chuckles. "Of course, my dear, I have no desire to meddle with your affairs, but you do need to take care as you carry that precious burden into the forest." With a knowing nod, he watches as Kyofu's bare human feet transform into the shape of fox paws, including the hocks, her stature elongating slightly. In a blur of motion, she dashes off into the dense forest, Jonathan held securely in her embrace. Left behind, Tanaka lets out a satisfied sigh, if you want to call it that, more like a chuckle. "Such delightful chaos," he murmurs to himself, relishing the spectacle before him. With a mischievous glint in his eyes, he disappears into the shadows. His presence now is the memory in the wake of Kyofu's departure. After venturing deeper into the forest, the woman's feet transform back to their human state, and the distinctive stripes on her cheeks vanish. She uncovers Jonathan from her flowing sleeves and gently sets him upon the ground, her voluminous hair still cascading around them both. Her tails arrange themselves behind her like an elegant fan. One of them curls protectively around the boy as they walk together. As they move, the mute boy takes a deep breath, still visibly affected by the encounter with the old sorcerer. Kyofu, holding a fan in her hand, playfully comments, "Oh, so you're more shaken up by that wrinkled old fossil than witnessing me slay dozens of people, hmm?" She senses his response through his soul and rolls her eyes in a teasing manner, lightly tapping him on the back of his head with her fan. All right, you're right. Death has always been a part of me. But that old sorcerer truly repulses me as well. She averts her gaze, a flicker of annoyance crossing her face. He gazes up at her, curiosity evident in his eyes, silently questioning their where they're going. She remains silent after a while, the weight of her voluminous uchikaki billowing behind her. Eventually, she lowers her gaze to meet his and speaks softly. There is a shrine not far from here. That is where we are heading, at least for now. And with this, she explains that the shrine offers both game to hunt and a secluded place where they won't be easily found, unlike the previous location where she'd been hibernating and was discovered. She continues, expressing her disdain for human cities, stating that beings like her prefer to live far away from them. There are many places we can choose to live, but creatures like me have always despised human cities, she admits with a touch of bitterness. Taking hold of his hand, she quickens her pace, a stark contrast to the monstrous creature that unleashed carnage not even a moment ago over 100 people. The boy, weakened by his earlier meal or lack thereof, and the lingering effects of his childhood bone disease, even though he doesn't have it anymore, there's still, and he's, like I said, he keeps himself in shape, he's healthy, but there's still issues. The boy struggles to keep up with the creature's pace. Eventually, he stumbles over the massive train of her kimono, falling to the ground. Without missing a beat, she casually catches him with two of her tails, their soft fur gently enveloping him. They lift him up, and she catches him with her arm, and she cradles him close. And with this, she chuckles. You should have let me know that you were getting tired, she teases, wrapping the uchikaki around him protectively. She notices the boy rolling his eyes, silently questioning how he could communicate his fatigue without words. She playfully swats him on the back of his head and admonishes him. Don't be clever, my dear. It doesn't suit you. The boy looks up at her, a glimmer of amusement in his eyes, as if acknowledging her teasing. Though he cannot speak, their unspoken bond allows for a playful connection between them. She calmly carries him to the old abandoned temple, their footsteps echoing through the empty space. The air is thick with the scent of dust and neglect, as if the place had been forgotten for decades or more. Setting him down gently, she motions for him to gather some firewood. With determination, the boy collects branches and twigs, creating a small pile by the entrance. As he finishes, the woman focuses her energy, and the pile of branches suddenly bursts into a crackling fire. She gestures for him to sit, and as they settle by the warm glow, she finally asks the question that has been lingering between them. Why can't you speak? The boy gently brings a fist to his throat. A gentle gesture as he basically presses into his throat, it's like a slapping sound, indicating his voicelessness. Understanding his response, the Nogutsune's expression softens with empathy. Someone hurt you there, she deduces. Her voice is tinged with both curiosity and concern. He nods, holding up 6 fingers, as is to signify the age in which it happened or it went down. Her features convert to anger or contort to anger. She presses further. Who did this to you? The boy averts his gaze, unwilling to disclose the answer. Sensing his reluctance, she scowls in response. Was it that wretched woman you call your mother? Though the boy doesn't meet her gaze, he nods, confirming her suspicion. A deep sigh escapes her lips as she reassures him, her tone casual yet chilling. Rest assured, the creature you refer to as your mother will endure far greater suffering than you ever have. The nonchalant manner in which she speaks about the woman's impending punishment sends shivers down the boy's spine, leaving him frightened and captivated by the Nogitsune's presence. He gazes to her, curiosity evident in his eyes as he silently questions how she can understand him so effortlessly. She responds with some pride. I can sense the language of the soul with ease. Among my kind, such communication comes naturally. I happen to excel at it. Taking a moment to collect herself, she finds herself in silence with that fan, contemplating their connection, sensing his unspoken query. She grasps his jaw gently, her finger tracing along his contours. Her voice becomes softer as she reveals more of certain things. You remind me of my son, who perished a long time ago, along with my husband. As I mentioned earlier. She mentions, how can I say this? She pauses, a wistful expression crossing her face. I like to believe that they have been reborn within the same being, which is you. But perhaps it is nothing more than wishful thinking upon my part. A soft laughter escapes her lips as she continues fanning herself. I find myself feeling a motherly affection towards you, and I desire you for more than just your liver, I must confess. He rolls his eyes in response, clearly unamused. She smacks him lightly with her fan, reminding him that he asked for an answer and he got one. Surprisingly, the boy finds that part amusing, and he laughs soundlessly. The Nogitsune smirks at him, satisfied by his reaction. He raises a curious eyebrow, his eyes fixed on her. The woman takes a moment to gather her thoughts before speaking. There are many reasons why I desire the liver. Firstly, it provides an immediate source of energy for me. Additionally, it possesses certain properties that enhance and fuel my power. The boy tilts his head, his eyes questioning. Sensing his unspoken query, she anticipates his thoughts, and with this she speaks. No, my dear, I am not truly a kitsune. She clarifies, her tone tinged with a hint of melancholy. I am what is called a nogitsune. Despair and sorrow transform me into the former, and then into the latter. It is a path I was destined to follow, but the tragic loss of my family sealed that fate. And with this, curiosity shines into his eyes. The boy grabs a stick and writes a word into the sand. Kyofu. She nods. Yes, that is indeed my name. Her voice carries a soft weight of sorrow as she confirms that title. Her touch lingers on his cheek. As she leans in closer, she asks, Why are you so small, my dear? I sense the remnants of a past illness within you. You mentioned it, but I do not understand. And with this he writes, it's a condition similar to osteogenesis imperfecta, but it is called precocis. It's a rare bone disorder where the first is not a curable mind. With treatments of bone marrow, it can be treated. It's a rare bone disorder that required me to go through these treatments when I was 5, all the way until I was 7. And with this, he writes further on the sanity service. My father, Thomas Kincaid, served in the military. When he was away, my mother grew frustrated with my slow recovery. She struck me in the throat, damaging my voice box irreversibly. Due to the ongoing treatments, my immune system at that time was compromised. There was nothing they could do. I was permanently unable to speak. Her face contorts into anger, her smooth visage transforming into razor-sharp edges for a fleeting moment. However, she manages to compose herself, and her teeth return to their normal appearance. Without a word, she simply leans down and presses a tender kiss on the top of his head, her gesture conveying both comfort and empathy. Curiosity gleams in the boy's eyes as he writes in the sand, questioning the woman's choice to consume human flesh instead of the livers of other creatures. She takes a moment to appreciate his inquisitiveness, impressed by his willingness to seek answers rather than blindly accepting explanations. With a gentle smile, she leans in and answers his query. No Gitsune, my dear. Require the spiritual energies of sentient beings. Usually we feed on the energies of violence or depravity, although any spiritual energy will suffice when necessary. It's a matter of survival for our kind. He nods, accepting her words, as she observes him with a genuine smile. She finds joy in the fact that he has chosen not to judge her, but instead seeks to understand. He writes in the sand, almost excitedly, mentioning the kumiho of Korean legends, and the woman her reaction is immediate. She snaps open her fan, unable to contain her laughter, which fills the air and almost causes her to double over. The scowl on the mute boy's face is evident, questioning why the hell she thinks this is so damn funny. She waves him off, still chuckling, and playfully ruffles his hair. Through her laughter, she explains, "Oh no, my dear. Some of my kind have developed a taste for Korean livers and their takeout, along with Chinese." She continues, still finding it amusing. You see, Hulijing, Kumiho, or Kitsune are simply different names that humans have given to our race. But since I've been in Japan, long before humanity's silly carpenter god from the west was born, I prefer the name Kitsune, or of course, no Gitsune. The boy feels a mixture of amusement and exasperation. He face palms, which only serves to make the tall woman laugh even harder. He writes in the sand, asking about the events that led to her fall and transformation into a Nogitsune. She nods slowly, understanding his question. She takes a deep breath before recounting a tale from the Heian period of Japan. It happened during the time when one of my own kind, a woman named Tomemo, seduced the emperor. His name was Toba at the time. You see, I was tasked by my family to assist various human families, using my gifts to bestow blessings, or even reaching out to the Nogitsune of that era to deliver curses. She snaps her fan closed and taps her head with it, closing her eyes in reflection. But then, I fell in love with a human farmer. His name was Sato. He saw me as a living being, not just some prize to be exploited. We had a son together. However, Tamemo, who had already become a Nogitsune before I was born, unleashed a torrent of misfortune and tragedies upon us. It included an earthquake that trapped my family in our home. I could only watch helplessly as they were burned alive. Her expression turns very sorrowfully as she speaks of the callousness of her own family, who considered a child a half-breed and the mortal man unworthy. She admits softly that it was this feeling of loss and despair that drove her to become what she always despised about mankind. With a sad smile, she gazes at the boy and confesses, "While I would do anything to have my family back, I cannot deny the power and freedom I have gained. I don't regret becoming who I am now." And with this, the boy shakes his head in disgust and takes hold of her hand. He starts writing in the sand excitedly. "Do you really believe that the souls of your departed son and husband are aside of me?" And what he was disgusted at was the actions of the events of the tragedy of her losing her family. Or those who had, of her own family, if you understand. Not her original, but her extended, if you get my drift. And with this, she admits she cannot be certain, as it has been too long ago since she last sensed their souls, but she wouldn't be really surprised at all. He nods in understanding and gently pats her hand. She smiles softly, perhaps for the first time without any amusement or attempt to appear seductive or terrifying. She tells him that He had helped her with, when he had helped her with the food. She knew she couldn't leave him in that terrible place. She had sensed that woman who was supposed to be his mother, what she had done with him. The boy's muted laughter quietly fills the air, unable to release the tears that he longs to shed. He shakes his head, silently conveying his inability to cry. The Nogitsune tilts her head and curiously speaks softly. You know, loving your mother, despite everything she's done, doesn't make you a bad person, Jonathan. Mother is the name for God in the hearts of all children. He shrugs, his silence speaking volumes. The creature shakes her head, her expression filled with empathy and understanding. She pulls him into her lap, enfolding him within the folds of her uchikaki. And with determination, she whispers fiercely, even if you can't shed tears, I will shed them for you. Tears well up in her eyes, shimmering in the darkness as she holds him tightly, her 9 tails splaying out in anger. Her midnight black hair wraps around them like a protective cocoon or shield, fitting them both within its embrace. Amanda Swanson nervously sits in Samuel Dyson's office, her battered face bearing the marks of interrogation by the shadowy organization known as Gene Dine. With a broken nose and a swollen eye, she anxiously awaits his questions. Samuel, a large black man with a bald head, glares at her from across his desk to the Caucasian woman, and whom he is very pissed off at right now. He calmly demands to know what she discovered in the facility without informing her superiors in the company. That's what he wants to know. Her anger seethes as she retorts. I retrieved what they asked for, a sleeping kitsune. I had no idea that this creature was so powerful. I had no fucking clue. We used dogs to try and contain her, but she slaughtered all of them. She seduced, killed, or did God knows what to everyone in that facility. The man asks her furiously, did you ever bother to have someone translate or learn to read the kanji inscriptions at that sleeping woman's temple at all? His words resonate with accusation and very firm disappointment and this anger, justifiable anger. Some of his colleagues had been at that site. Amanda Swanson's laughter trembles with fear as Samuel's words sink in. Her blood runs cold as he screams that she had discovered the shrine housing the notorious Nogitsune named Kyofu, meaning terror and death. The creature feared for centuries by countless people in Japan, second only to Tamamo herself. Amanda, realizing the gravity of her mistake, feels her trembling intensify. She screams in denial, insisting that Samuel must be mistaken. She would never have willingly brought such a notorious nightmare into their midst. The man shrugs dismissively and declares that it is clear that she did. He asserts that someone must be held accountable for the lives lost in the catastrophic biological event caused by our actions. He proclaims that she'll be handed over to the Japanese authorities for questioning, as her lapse in judgment cost numerous lives. No shit. With a smug smirk, he warns her against mentioning Japanese monsters to anyone, as she would only be met with laughter. And with this, she screams louder. She desperately argues that this was not her fault. What the hell happened to your son, Amanda? Or do you even care? It wasn't my fault. I didn't know what that creature truly was. Oh, please. I've seen the footage of Kyofu with your son. You deliberately trapped him in that cell with that creature, that monster. No, it wasn't intentional. I didn't know it would turn out like this. So what did that creature want with your precious son, huh? His liver is a delicacy? Or something even more terrifying? You have to believe me. I didn't intend any harm to come to him. Spare me your excuses. I've read the reports of how you treated your own son. You're a cold-hearted bitch, Amanda. Please, there must be something I can do to make amends. It's too late for that now. You're going to answer for the lives lost because of your reckless actions. The Japanese authorities will have their questions and you'll have to face the consequences. Her pleas fall on deaf ears as Samuel's harsh judgment lingers, leaving the vile woman to confront the grim reality of her choices. Kate Holloway, a woman of solid stature and striking beauty, enters Samuel Dyson's office with purpose. Her experience as an ex-Special Forces operative and her history of taking down high-level threat-level Yokai and other supernatural entities is evident in her confident demeanor. She is dressed in a sleek black suit, complemented by an ankle-length coat that hangs open, revealing her fit and toned frame. Her blonde hair is neatly tied back, emphasizing her sharp features. Samuel, you called me in a hurry? What's the next mission? Kate, we're facing a formidable adversary. We're going after the notorious Nogitsune known as Kyofu, and I won't mince some words. It's not going to be easy. Kyofu? She's a dangerous target, Samuel. Why not consider capturing her or containing her or something, instead of resorting to lethal force? Kate, we cannot afford to let her roam freely. She's not just a threat because of her abilities, but because of the knowledge she possesses. She has consumed the essence of those she has killed, including some of our own operatives. A lot of our own operatives, actually, he says without humor. She holds classified information that could compromise everything that we've worked for, especially with our superiors. So she's essentially a walking repository of classified data, then? Exactly. Precisely. She absorbed the knowledge and memories of her victims, I should say. This is getting to me. Gaining insights into our operations and strategies. We cannot risk the exposure of our organization at all. Sam, I stopped taking life a long time ago if I could help it. That's why I accepted what you had to offer. I mean, true, I have to contain yokai sometimes. I've always been good at that, but less killing. But I understand just how dangerous this thing is. If capturing her isn't an option, then I will do what needs to be done. That's the spirit, Kate. We're counting on your skills and experience to lead the team and put an end to this creature's reign of terror. It won't be an easy mission, but failure is not an option. In a secure facility deep within the Toshiki Prefecture, two scientists, Kenji and Shimura, stand before the ancient stone bearing the sigils of Lady Tamamo's imprisonment, the Sheshosheki, the Killing Stone. As they look to the Sheshoseki, Kenji, the head scientist of the Jindine facility, dismisses the warnings and concerns of his comrade Shimura, downplaying the significance of the sigils that are all over the damn thing. Shimura, you worry too much. These sigils are just superstition. We're scientists, not believers in ancient folklore. But Kenji, you don't understand. Breaking those sigils could unleash unimaginable chaos upon this lab. We've heard reports of the havoc caused by the legendary Nogitsune Kyofu in the nearby Kanto region. We can't risk the same fate here. Shimura, you're being irrational. A guard, with a wave of Kenji's hand, pulls Shimura back, to say the least, because he doesn't want the man interfering with what he plans to do. Look, nothing's gonna go wrong. The power within this stone is too valuable to ignore. You're being irrational. Stop it. Please, Kenji, think about the lives at stake. We have to reconsider. This is dangerous territory. We're playing with forces we can't control. Despite Shimura's, fervent pleas, Kenji remains resolute, convinced that the rewards outweigh the risks. With a determined expression, he prepares to break the seals, unaware of the impending consequences that may befall them all. They take the stone deeper into the laboratory. Inside the fortified laboratory, a sense of anticipation hangs in the air as the two men stand finally before the stone of her imprisonment, Lady Tamamo as that is. The room is dimly lit, casting eerie shadows across the walls. Surrounding them are cages containing various yokai specimens, adding an extra layer of tension to the already charged atmosphere. Kenji puts on his lab coat, adorned with different insignias. Of course, clearances, rank, all that stuff. He very commonly approaches the stone, a sledgehammer held firmly in his grasp. His eyes gleam with excitement and ambition as he prepares to shatter the ancient seals that have held the legendary Kitsune captive for centuries. Shimoda, mark my words, if there is any truth behind this legend, we're on the verge of a breakthrough. These seals are merely obstacles we must overcome. Kenji, please, man, reconsider. We don't know what we're dealing with here. These seals have kept something immensely powerful contained for a very good reason. The man is completely undeterred by Shimoda's concerns. He raises the sledgehammer high above his head, and with this, a metallic glint of the hammer's head catches the dim light as it prepares to strike the stone. With a resolute expression, Kenji brings down the hammer forcefully, shattering the seals and causing the stone to crack ominously. See, Shimoda? Nothing to worry about. Just an old stone. We'll discover what's inside, if anything at all. His words fade. The lights in the laboratory flicker and dim, casting the room into deeper shadows. The crack in the stone widens, and before anyone can react, a violent explosion reverberates through the air. Shards of stone become deadly projectiles, instantly claiming the lives of three unfortunate men who stood too close. Chaos ensues as the alarms blare, and the containment measures meant to confine the yokai creatures fail under the sudden surge of energy. The room is consumed by an eerie aura, a potent mixture of fear and impending doom. Kenji's confident expression turns into one of disbelief as the situation spirals out of control, proving that tampering with ancient powers is stupid. In the center of the chaos and destruction, a figure emerges. Towering over the chaos is Lady Tamamo herself, the ancient and very powerful Kitsune, her majestic presence commanding attention. Standing at a staggering height of almost 8.5 feet, she exudes an aura of otherworldly beauty and strength. Her resplendent junihito cascades around her form, its intricate patterns accentuated by the flickering light of the flames. Her long flowing hair frames her striking face, with her 9 crimson foxtails swaying elegantly behind her, like a mesmerizing fan. Her regal appearance is completed by her elaborate Hime-style hairstyle, a symbol of her nobility among all the yokai. With a graceful manner, she very calmly opens an ornate fan, its intricate designs filled with shimmering with an ethereal power. She fans herself leisurely, her eyes filled with amusement, resembling the cunning gaze of a fox. She smiles flirtatiously. My, what a delightful turn of events. It seems that your idiocy has inadvertently set me free. For that, I am truly grateful. And with this, her words drip with mischief and a touch of seduction. As she speaks, wisps of foxfire dance around her form, the black flames flickering with an ominous allure. The sudden temperature in the room rises, and the air crackles with an unsettling energy. With a sudden burst of fiery power, she unleashes her fury. The black flames erupt from her being, consuming everything in her path, or their path. The laboratory becomes a hellish inferno within a matter of seconds. The lives of dozens are snuffed out, their screams silenced by the overwhelming darkness. The air becomes heavy with the acrid scent of smoke and the eerie silence that follows the devastation. Lady Tamamo stands amidst the wreckage, a sinister smile lingering on her lips, as if relishing in the chaos. She is wrought. She surveys the aftermath. Her eyes filled with a mix of satisfaction and a hunger for more. Such foolish mortals, thinking they could control powers they could never comprehend. The world shall truly tremble at my wake, and I shall reclaim what was once mine. Her voice carries a chilling promise, hinting at the depths of her ambition and the ruthless nature that lies within her, as the echoes of her dark laughter mingle with the fading cries of the fallen. As Kenji's lifeless gaze meets the burned remains of his colleague Shimuda, a shiver runs down his spine. The horror etched on Shimuda's face, even in death, serves as a haunting testament to the unimaginable terror that has just unfolded. The scent of charred flesh lingers in the air, mingling the acrid smoke that billows from the decimated lab. Lady Tamamo, her towering figure cloaked within the resplendent Junihito, now reveals her hands, concealed in the sleeves until this moment. With a sinuous movement, her elongated fingers extend like the claws of a predator, reaching out with her right hand to seize Kenji by the throat. The grip is relentless, constricting his windpipe, cutting off any chance of escape. Her fox-like features become unmistakable as three distinct stripes appear on each cheek, emphasizing her supernatural nature. Her head elongates, transforming into the visage of a cunning fox, its eyes gleaming with a sinister intelligence. The aura of danger surrounding this woman intensifies as she drives her other hand into Kenji's side, ruthlessly tearing out his liver in an effortless motion. His body is discarded callously, falling to the ground at the woman's feet, the final casualty of her insatiable hunger. With an eerie calmness, she raises her hand to her mouth, the gleam of those teeth visible as she swallows the freshly harvested organ whole. Her consumption of the liver, a macabre display of her predatory nature, solidifies her dominance over the fallen scientists. As the last remnants of Kenji's existence vanish into her, Lady Tamamo's features gradually shift into a humanoid form. She cracks her neck, the sound echoing ominously in the silence that surrounds her. Unfazed by the destruction she has wrought, she strides purposefully out of the devastated laboratory, her flowing kimono trailing behind her like a shadowy river of death. With every step down the dimly lit corridor, she exudes an air of supreme confidence and regality. Her mere presence commands both respect and fear, her power resonating within the shadows of her being. The weight of her centuries-old wisdom and experience rests upon her shoulders. She moves forward, her path paved with both ancient legend and her own insatiable desires. Her regal force, even now, exuding an ancient power, extends her hand with a calm wave. The cell bars that once held two young kitsune, a male and a female, yield under her commands, liquefying like molten wax. The female hisses, sensing the immediate danger she represents. She flees, getting the hell out of there. The male, showing reverence and gratitude, remains kneeling by before the legendary figure. She finds herself that ornate fan. She gazes down at the young one with a mixture of curiosity and amusement. She inquires how long he's been trapped within the confines of this cell. The young kitsune, he's full grown, but his one single tail sways gently behind him. He acknowledges that he's been in prison for several months by humans associated with the enigmatic organization known as Gendine. She rolls her eyes in mild annoyance. She dismisses the need for such details, remarking that she has gleaned that information from the souls of those she has recently just dispatched. With a seemingly tender gesture, she caresses the young kitsune's cheek, imparting a false sense of compassion. However, in an instant, Her hand transforms into a fox's paw, his claws ripping into the young kitsune's side, extracting his still beating liver. The young kitsune's body convulses in pain as Lady Tamamo. Her grip tightens, swiftly ending his life by tearing off his head and crushing his skull. The sound of bones cracking through the desolate hallway. Now holding the lifeless head of the young kitsune, she discards it callously. Her eyes fill with a mixture of satisfaction and hunger. Consuming his liver with calculated precision, she draws upon his essence and his innocence, bolstering her own formidable hunger. As the taste of the kitsune's essence lingers on her tongue, she lifts her head, sniffing the air with a sense of anticipation. A faint whisper escapes her lips, barely audible, as she utters the words, "Broken one." Her senses heightened. Lady Tamamo recognizes the presence of someone or something drawing nearer to her. Tears glisten in her eyes, an emotion rarely seen in the eyes of a formidable creature. The hand that once held the severed head now drops to the ground, his lifeless gaze staring into oblivion. Moving forward with an almost ethereal grace, Lady Tamamo drifts down the dimly lit corridor, almost gliding, guided by an invisible force, her purpose clear but shrouded in mystery. As Lady Tamamo revels in her power and savors the young taste of the kitsune's essence, a sudden rumble fills the air. The ground beneath the facilities trembles with increasing intensity until a thunderous explosion. The entire structure erupts to a blazing inferno. Flames engulf the halls, devouring everything in their path, reducing the once formidable facility to smoking ruins. Amidst the chaos and destruction, the silhouette of a majestic creature emerges from the fiery wreckage. A massive red fox standing as tall as a tiger, its 9 tails swaying gracefully, reveals itself to all that are still able to witness the spectacle. The creature's fiery aura casts an eerie glow, illuminating the night with its otherworldly presence. With a powerful leap, the creature bounds into the darkness, leaving behind a trail of destruction and the charred remains of the ill-fated facility. Its form disappears into the night, becoming one with the shadows as it embarks on an unknown path, driven by instinct and primal desires. The echoes of the explosion fade into silence, leaving behind only whispers of the legend that once walked among men. Lady Tamamo, the embodiment of cunning and power, has escaped the shackles of her confinement and now roams the world once more, a force to be reckoned with. Samuel Dyson, his tall frame towering over the table, leaned forward with intensity in his eyes. The lines on his forehead deepened, revealing the weight of his emotions. Kate Holloway, her piercing gaze fixed on Amanda Swanson, stood behind Samuel, her hand gripping the handle of her gun, ready to enforce any necessary measures. The sterile room, dimly lit with a single overhead light, seemed to amplify the tension in the room. Amanda, disheveled and bruised, sat on the cold metal chair, her eyes darting between Samuel and Kate. Uncertainty etched on her face. "I'm going to give you one chance, Swanson. I need every detail of what you witnessed when Kyofu was discovered." What could I possibly know that you don't already? "Don't play games with me, Swanson." The man clenches his fists. He seethes, his voice laced with rage. "Lady Tamamo, the infamous kitsune turned no Gitsune of legend, is free. Over 5,000 lives have been extinguished because of the chaos she unleashed." The weight of the man's words hung heavily in the room, causing a gasp to escape Dr. Swanson's lips. Kate, ever composed, slowly drew a gun from her pocket and aimed it directly at Amanda, her gaze unyielding. Now, Swanson, you gonna tell us everything you know, or else you'll never leave this room alive. I've already told you. I didn't understand the inscriptions above Kyofu's bed. To me, it was just another sleeping black fox, like some of the other kitsune we've studied. Kate, her gaze thoughtful, holstered her gun and nodded. I believe her. There's no reason for her to lie about this. I remember the footage of Kyofu taking Swanson's child. He muttered, his voice filled with concern. I've mentioned this before, but based on what I know of kitsune, they often take men for their own twisted games, or something more intimate, possibly. Here's the thing. Kyofu was rumored to have had a human lover, and a son in Japanese folklore. It's very well known. There's even an anime about it. Damn Japanese. There's something about her son that must have appealed to the dangerous creature in this situation. The somber silence filled the room as the weight of the situation settled upon them. The fate of Amanda Swanson's child and countless lives hung on the balance, with the answers buried within the mysteries of the kitsune. Holloway spoke softly. Why did you bring your son to this facility in the first place? Go to hell. Holloway, very calmly, pressed that gun into Amanda's temple. Answer the damn question, or I'll gladly blow your brains all over this fucking wall. She asked you a question, Amanda. Answer it, or face the consequences. I took my son out of school because he was too much trouble to keep an eye on. I wish he'd been killed by that damn monster we found. Maybe I wouldn't be cursed like this. The man took a step back, a knowing smirk still on his face. He displayed a video on his phone, revealing Kyofu threatening Swanson while holding the boy in her arm. Swanson crumbled, tears streaming down her face, a mixture of anger and despair overwhelming her. Kate spoke softly. I'm a mama myself, and this bitch right here, she ain't nothing but garbage. Let's try to stay focused. At least things are starting to make sense now. Kate raised an eyebrow. She looked from Amanda to Samuel, the man she respected as a father figure, as I said. He let out a heavy sigh, and with weariness he began to speak about Lady Tamamo. The legends aren't widely known, but it is believed that Lady Tamamo has a history of seducing and manipulating men of power to wreak havoc and seek revenge. She has taken on many names and forms across different cultures, from China to India. Cut to the chase, Sam. What are you saying? What I spoke of is, of course, well known throughout Japan and throughout their folklore. What I'm going to tell you now is much less known. Here's the thing. She had a lover, a very fragile human male, who was taken from her by a jealous suitor. From my own contacts and different things that I've known before this even happened, the reason she has done what she's done is she seeks vengeance upon men of power. That is what she does. She grows stronger. That is how she became a no kitsune in the first place. It seems right now that she has her sights on someone very much like Dr. Swanson's son, Jonathan. And with this, Samuel speaks. He reveals that he had conducted a background check on Jonathan, learning that he was a resilient young man who had overcome that bone disease and achieved honors in his classes despite his mute condition. He nodded, his expression filled with a mix of agreement and disdain of what he's been speaking. He says, Jonathan seems like a good kid. He seemed like one anyway. Amanda over here, well, as you said it yourself, is nothing more than human garbage. The weight of the revelation hung tightly in the air. You wouldn't understand, and who are you to judge when you yourselves are conducting experiments on mythological demons? It's actually quite simple. My benefactors are driven by pursuit of knowledge, seeking ways to benefit mankind. We're not driven by the cruelty of hating a child, simply because he bears a resemblance to his father. He turned to Kate, his eyes determined with anger. Take her back to Fuchi prison, Kate. Treat her as you see fit, but don't kill her. The woman's lips curled into a smirk as she cracked her knuckles, a silent promise of retribution. Tanaka's lair, hidden away in the depths of a secluded forest near Tokyo. It exuded an air of ancient power. The walls were adorned with mystical artifacts and intricate symbols, reflecting the sorcerer's mastery of the arcane arts. As he reclined in his opulent chair, meditating on the secrets of the universe, at least that's what he would call it. It's actually much darker than that. An abrupt disturbance shattered the tranquility of his dark musings. The dragon seal guarding the entrance glowed with an otherworldly light, and the door swung open with a creak. His eyes narrowed, those old teeth of his bared, ready to confront the intruder who dared disturb his sanctuary. But as his gaze fell upon the tall figure stepping into the chamber, his snarl froze on his lips. It was Lady Tamamo, the being of legendary power, her presence radiating a mixture of elegance and menace. With a swift movement beyond what the eye could see, she closed the distance between them. Her fingers, coiled around the man's throat. A sneer twisted her features as she stared into his eyes, accusing him of his past transgressions. Tanaka, overwhelmed by a sudden rush of fear and submission, could only listen in silence as she berated him. His protestations caught in his throat. His magic was rendered useless, because even if she moved, she would dig those claws into him and kill him before her might. Her grip finally relented, and she cast him aside, his body crashing onto the stone-cold floor. She stood before him, her fan unfurled, its ornate design glimmering with mystical power. Her 9 foxtails swayed gracefully, their fiery red hues dancing in the light of the lair. The vibrant colors of her junihito, the 12-layered ceremonial robe, seemed to embody a forbidden allure. The sorcerer humbled himself, his forehead touching the ground. He spoke with a tremor in his voice. Lady Tamamo, what can I do to serve you? How may I fulfill your desires and offer my unworthy assistance? His words were laced with both fear and a glimmer of hope, knowing that he had once been acquainted, once more, with this formidable being. Her eyes gleamed with a mixture of amusement and disdain. She reveled in his submission, relishing the power she held over him. With a regal poise, she responded, her voice dripping with a seductive cruelty. Tanaka, you were as lecherous and as disgusting as I can remember. But now, you will serve a new purpose in my grand design. Listen carefully, for your role will be pivotal. How did you manage to break free from your imprisonment? He said, finally, after standing up and regaining his composure. She emitted a tired sigh, her disdain evident as she continued to fan herself in a show of nonchalance. Disgust laced her words. She replied, attributing her liberation with the sheer stupidity of certain human scientists. A term she used with disgust. A self-indulgent laugh escaped her lips as she relished the memory of their demise, relishing in the nourishment their tormented souls had provided. Swiftly shifting gears, she focused on the reason for her visit. She spoke of an ethereal whisper carried by the winds, a whisper that spoke of a shattered existence, Clarifying her words, she explained that it was not merely a man, but a boy, teetering on the cusp of manhood, who had drawn her attention. There was a peculiar connection between this young boy and a formidable power, and a formidable member of her own kind, a kitsune, or kitsune, turned no kitsune, whose power rivaled her own. The sorcerer's brow furrowed with intrigue and confusion, his mind grappling to make sense of her cryptic words. Curiosity won over that caution of his, and he allowed Lady Tamamo to delve deeper into her revelation. She proceeded, speaking of the boy's significance and the profound impact he could have on their shared world. He acknowledged the events that had unfolded during Lady Tamamo's protracted imprisonment. The weight of those occurrences hung heavily in the air, as he replied, "Indeed, dear lady, much has transpired in your absence. Allow me to illuminate the chronicles of these times." Her captivating gaze remained fixed on him, her hands gracefully disappearing within the voluminous sleeves of her robes. A subtle nod granted him permission to proceed, and Tanaka embarked on a narrative that would unravel the complex tapestry of their intertwined fates, unearthing the secrets of their realm, hidden beneath layers of darkness and mystique. His voice resonated with a mix of fascination and caution as he wove the tale of Kyofu, the kitsune turned no kitsune, who had emulated Lady Tamamo in a relentless pursuit of chaos and power. He detailed the centuries of havoc Kyofu had sown, from the pages of history stained with the blood of wars to her seduction of influential men, to her manipulation of political events, and her role in causing droughts and poisoning the land. He described the moments he had laid eyes upon Kyofu, cradling a fragile mute boy in her arms, his vulnerability, the resilience that struck a chord within him, resonating the brokenness that echoed throughout their ancient legends. Lady Tamamo's features contorted with a mixture of anger and intrigue as she absorbed his words, her tales thrashing around the room in agitation. She finally spoke. She would acquire the boy no matter what the cost. Her desire to possess him, to claim him as her own, burned within her. Tanaka, aware of the dangers that lay in the path of such an endeavor, cautioned her, stating that Kyofu would swiftly dispatch anyone who dared cross her path. With a dismissive shrug, she casually coolly fanned herself, her eyes locked onto Tanaka's. She made her intentions unmistakably clear, threatening him with the lethal consequences if he failed to fulfill her desire. The weight of her gaze bore down upon Tanaka, leaving him with no choice but to acquiesce, knowing the dire circumstances or consequences that would fall upon him if he defied her. Reluctantly, the man nodded, accepting the daunting task before him, his mind racing with the risks and intricacies that lay ahead. The fate of the fragile boy, the brewing clash between Lady Tamamo and Kyofu, and the unfolding of their intertwined destinies hung in the balance, their paths converging once more in a dance of power, desire, and ancient enmity. 3 months passed since their escape from the lab in the Kanto district. Kyofu's Masahuchikaki, adorned with intricate designs and vibrant colors, was spread loosely over 2 forms, like a protective cocoon. Beneath the folds of the heavy garment, a young man, naked and disoriented, attempted to scramble away. Before he could get far, a lean arm reached out and grabbed him, pulling him back under the uchikaki, next to the larger form hidden within. As the young man felt himself enveloped by the warmth of the fabric, he felt Kyofu's thick hair gently settle around him like a comforting embrace. Her 9 tails, ethereal and mesmerizing, closed around him, securing him against her ample chest, with his back pressed against her. Her playful smirk curved to her lips. She teasingly asked where he thought he was going. The boy, obviously unable to speak, simply shook his head in amusement, their eyes reflecting the trust and connection that had formed between them during their time together. During this intimate moment within the sanctuary of their shared refuge, Kyofu and Jonathan found solace in each other's presence. The bonds forged, with their shared experiences and unspoken understanding between them, held them together in a delicate dance of trust and companionship. The world outside may have been filled with chaos and uncertainty, but within the folds of the Uchikaki they found a fleeting respite, a sanctuary where they could momentarily escape the trials that awaited them on their intertwined path. Where do you think you're going? Makasuni Noesa. He shakes his head, chuckling. In amusement, mutely of course. I can sense your restlessness. But don't worry, my love. I am going to take you somewhere special, where you don't have to worry about aging a day. John raises a questioning eyebrow, not understanding. She affectionately explains to him, You'll know when the time is right, my dear. For now, just trust me. She ruffles his hair gently, a fond smile on her face. I promise you, it will be a place where we can be together, away from the chaos of the world. He snorts softly and shakes his head, a silent exchange of playful banter. Kyofu shakes her. She chuckles and presses her forehead against his own, their bond unspoken but strong. In the ancient city nestled away from prying eyes, Kiyoshi Takeda, a towering woman with gray skin, of at least 10 foot, meticulously works in her alchemy lab. Scattered across the room are jars filled with various ingredients. The air is thick with the scent of herbs and potions. She's a part of a race that predates humanity known as the Advents. A woman suddenly materializes before Kiyoshi, her own stature diminutive compared to Kiyoshi's 10-foot form. The Advent, recognizing the Nogitsune, inquires how she can be of assistance. With a graceful motion, Kyofu unveils the hidden depths of her Uchikaki, revealing a young boy with blonde hair nestled in its folds. It is none other than Jonathan. Well, 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 what do we have here? A human boy with a very unique aura. There's something different about him, isn't there? And I'm not just talking about your scent all over him, Kyofu. Ah, so you've noticed that, Bent. Yes, the boy is mute, and has had a bone disease as a child, but he has outgrown it. We need a way to extend his life. Kiyoshi, the alchemist, nods in understanding, studying the boy intently. I see. His condition presents an interesting challenge. I can certainly create an alchemical process to extend his life, but I must be clear, it won't grant him immortality. However, with time and further research, adjustments might be possible. Kyofu smirks and playfully drops a handful of gold coins into Kiyoshi's hand, the clinking sound echoing in the lab. Consider this an investment, Kiyoshi. I trust in your abilities to provide the best for this boy. Well, well, gold always speaks to an alchemist's heart. Fear not, Kyofu. I will begin working on the process immediately. Rest assured, I will give him the utmost care. Thank you, Kiyoshi. Your dedication is invaluable. I have faith in your abilities. With renewed determination, Kiyoshi sets to work, gathering her tools and carefully selecting the necessary ingredients. Kyofu watches attentively, her eyes filled with anticipation and with a touch of affection. She knows that she has entrusted the boy's future to someone capable, someone who can provide him with the extended life she feels he deserves. What is so special about this boy that you desire this done? He helped me when I was captured by humans. Disgusted, Kiyoshi shakes her head. I am concerned about humans as well. The 10-year slumber is approaching, and my family members are concerned as well. I was sleeping when humans raided my temple and committed terrible acts. Leave it at that. This boy showed me kindness. I would never harm him. Moreover, I believe he is the embodiment of my son, Hanto, and my husband, Santo, in the same soul. I doubt that. Advents have better memories and knowledge of the soul. At this point, I don't care about doubts. I know who I love, and I simply desire him to be with me. Sounds like my Aunt Ayaka. Must be contagious. She snorts in disgust. Excuse me. That woman loved humans far too much. In my opinion, she was also completely mad and would make the worst of us look sane. However, she is the one person known to actually capture Tanaka, that damn sorceress bastard. That in itself shows her strength. Kiyoshi grows serious and nods in agreement. She acknowledges that Ayako was the strongest among them, but for a human boy, she considers it a waste. Ayaka threw everything away and caused the death of many. More than one kitsune has made such a decision, Kyofu says. She gently places her fan on her sleeve. It may seem mad to others, but I would do the same for Hato, Sato, and now Jonathan. Kitsune have always been closely connected to human events. In your case, I don't blame you. How your family abandoned you was unforgivable and hypocritical. Kiyoshi continues. You have taken up that name and caused mayhem, growing stronger as a result. I can understand why. The name Kyofu is something I took up. It is something I have no shame in. She then lifts John in her arms, enveloping in a strong embrace, as she listens silently, running her hands through his hair. She continues. For this boy, I would have loved to become Mayame again, but those days are gone. Kiyoshi nods sadly. In the midst of the somber atmosphere, she says, the process is complete. This will indeed extend his life by centuries. The boy raises a brow, contemplating the information before nodding silently and tightly gripping Kyofu's hand. Her massive tails twitch, filling the entire room as the vial is handed to him. Nervously, he drinks it, and he begins to feel drowsy. Kyofu scowls as she catches the boy and holds him close. Kiyoshi raises a calming hand. He will awaken soon. Just have patience. He moans silently, mutely, his body trembling as he shakes his head to clear the lingering drowsiness. The fog dissipates, and he feels a renewed sense of vitality coursing through his veins. With a nod of gratitude, he acknowledges Kiyoshi, who chuckles warmly and tells him that he is welcome. Kyofu, her eyes filled with affection, scoops the boy up in her arms, his small form partially concealed by the voluminous sleeves of her uchikaki. She expresses her heartfelt gratitude to Kiyoshi, emphasizing the depth of her appreciation for her assistance. Kiyoshi promises with a gentle smile, urging Kyofu to repay her gratitude by taking good care of him. She reminds Kyofu of the rare second chance that beings like them are rare, they've been granted. Or that chance which they get. A chance to nurture and safeguard the boy's newfound lease on life. She runs her hand through Jonathan's hair, her touch conveying both tenderness and determination. In a silent understanding, they exchange nods, their unspoken connection affirmed. Then in a flicker of ebony flames, Kyofu and the boy vanish from the alchemy lab, leaving behind a sense of gratitude and a shared commitment to the boy's well-being. Well-being. In his dimly lit lair, Tanaka sat across from Mimiko, a human woman dressed in a resplendent blue and black junihito. With an air of boredom and arrogance, she lazily found herself while questioning Tanaka about the nature of his request. Tanaka glanced at Mimiko, his apprentice, and handed her a small wood carving, his gaze filled with purpose. Her brow perked up, and with this, she looked at the, intricately carved wood carving, recognizing the immense talent behind it. There was no doubt. Curiosity filled her voice as she asked Tanaka what he desired from her in return from his help. And with this, she sought to understand the true purpose behind his unusual task. With a solemn expression, he began to reveal the weight of his plight. He explained that Lady Tamamo herself had personally approached him with a demand. She had tasked him with finding the mysterious creator of the wood carving, a boy whose aura was intertwined with it. Tanaka had discovered the carving amidst the ruins of the burned-out laboratory in the Kanto district. Lady Tamamo's ultimatum was clear: find and deliver this boy to her if she wished to safeguard his own life. Emiko's terror was palpable as the gravity of the situation settled upon her. She caught her breath, her mind racing to comprehend the rumors surrounding that one, the monstrous being supposedly roaming free. She found her voice and posed the question, her voice trembling with disbelief and fear, seeking confirmation of the unthinkable. His nod was affirmative, his gaze reflecting the grim reality they both faced. Lady Tamamo's existence was no longer a mere rumor. She had unleashed her presence once more upon the world, and they were entangled in her dangerous game. The weight of their task hung heavy in the air, leaving them both with a sense of trepidation and an uncertain future ahead. What does Lady Tamamo want with this boy, Master Tanaka? I simply need you to locate the boy, Emiko. Lady Tamamo insists that he is to be brought to her. And what of this wood carving? It's beautifully crafted, but it represents something so troubling. The boy who made it was subjected to unimaginable cruelty by a very wicked woman. I am well aware of the boy's tragic past. That's precisely why we must find him. Her voice trembled. I despise the thought of anyone enduring such torment. It makes me want to cast this wood carving away. The marble here I cast, personally, from a dead man's bones, is picking up nothing but pain and suffering from it. I understand your sentiment, but we cannot afford to dismiss it. The boy's craftsmanship it caught her attention, and she demands his presence. So, there's no denying it. The rumors are true, and her power looms large. We must fulfill her request if we value our own lives. I will use my skills to locate the boy, but I cannot help but feel a great sorrow for him. Master Tanaka, I must ask, what does Lady Tamamo want with this boy? Her eyes rolled in disdain as the man answered her question and told her about Lady Tamamo's intention. The mere thought of what the monstrous woman would do to a vulnerable child of this type of affair, or young man, sent shivers down her spine. She couldn't fathom the depths of Lady Tamamo's depravity. History spoke of it. Hundreds of thousands of people dying, maybe even millions, dynasties falling, just pure horror and death. And with this, the man let out a very tired sigh, fully aware of the boy's tragic past. He had witnessed the torment the child's, had endured firsthand, inflicted by his own mother under the influence of malevolent spirits. The boy's brokenness seemed to be what attracted the Nogitsune's sick fascination. She couldn't accept his resigned perspective. Emiko, who was a very dark woman herself when it came to obsession and vanity, she had morals despite that. She believed there had to be a better way. A way to protect the boy from such horrors. Tanaka simply scoffed at her. His words cut deep, reminding Emiko of the harsh reality they faced. Survival was their priority, and jeopardizing their lives for the sake of a stranger seemed foolish to her. Reluctantly, she fell into a momentary silence before reluctantly agreeing to locate the boy and fulfill Lady Tomomo's demands. Her decision was driven by self-preservation. She couldn't afford to risk her own life for someone she barely knew. She had put too much into her own affairs. She was ancient by any kind of human imagining. She was not wanting to get rid of her own life so quickly. Tanaka nodded approvingly, satisfied that Emiko had finally embraced reason. They would find the boy and deliver him to the clutches of Lady Tomomo. Their own survival depended on it, and their personal connection to the boy became secondary. Kate Holloway stood at the forefront of her well-armed team, comprising of 15 men. They were a force to be reckoned with, armed to the teeth, and accompanied by two mastiff dogs. Big, massive, bull mastiff dogs, straining against their leashes. On the other side, Lady Tomomo, leaning nonchalantly against a tree, her disdain for the dogs evident in her smirk. She elegantly let her hands fall free from her resplendent Junihito sleeves, her fingertips extending into razor-sharp claws. Lady Tomomo locked eyes with each of the members of the opposing team, her voice dripping with malice as she spoke. Your souls will be eviscerated, and your essence devoured, even that of your own children. Upon Kate's command, the three dogs were unleashed, their growls filling the air as they lunged at her, aiming for her throat. However, Tomomo, her no gets any tails unfurling behind her, swiftly intercepted the attack. With a very vicious, grotesque display of power, she seized the dogs, her clawed hands mercifully tearing their heads from their bodies. Undeterred from the gruesome sight, the men opened fire, their bullets finding their marks on her robes, but failing to pierce her flesh. It had very similar properties as to that of Kyofu's Uchikaki. They failed to pierce her flesh. As two men took advantage from the distraction, they produced blinding lights in time their screams piercing the air before they suddenly ignited into flames, reducing to ashes before the team's astonished eyes. She calmly fanned herself with a clawed hand, her vulpine head towering above them, radiating both power and malevolence. Two men, seemingly ensnared by her mesmerizing presence, turned their guns toward their comrades, their eyes filled with longing and inexplicable allure. Chaos ensued as the remaining men were engulfed in foxfire, their agonized cries silenced as they were consumed by the flames, leaving only behind the trembling figure of Kate Holloway. The bewildered team had armed themselves with rounds believed to be blessed by a Shinto priest, yet their efforts proved futile against Tomomo's otherworldly resilience. She continued to find herself with an aura of cool detachment, the intricate designs of her robes flickering in unison with the ethereal aura surrounding her tails. She delved into Kate's hypnotized mind. Her narrowed eyes searching for a specific connection. With a sense of satisfaction, she discovered the link she sought, an emotional thread leading to the mother of the tormented boy. Addressing Kate Holloway, she expressed her appreciation for her unwitting contribution, her voice dripping with a mixture of gratitude and cruelty. And with a single slash of her deadly claws, she ended Kate's life, leaving behind a chilling presence in the wake of her triumph. Himiko's keen senses detect John's unique aura, and she glances at Tanaka, silently signaling him for him to accompany her. The seasoned sorcerer, familiar with Himiko's status as the CEO of the Yamaguchi Corporation, observes the sizable group she has brought along. Though he recognizes the potential fate that awaits these individuals as mere pawns, he harbors little concern in this particular instance. Navigating through the dense forest within the Kanto region, Himiko and Tanaka press forward, their steps measured and purposeful. Two men, accompanied by a pair of majestic Akitas, traverse alongside of them. Tanaka's expression turns into a scowl as he reaches into his robes, retrieving a massive black katana, the dreaded katana. Ask Michael about that one. He motions for Emiko to prepare herself as they approach the ornate shrine. One of the men announces that he has successfully located the boy. He carries a young blond man over his shoulder, unmistakably Jonathan, seemingly unconscious or subdued. Tanaka's scowl deepens as he voices his skepticism. This doesn't sit right. There's no way the boy will be so easily captured, he asserts, his voice laced with concern. Now, the kid put up a fight, but one good punch silenced him. He was inside the temple. Tanaka's instincts alert him that something is amiss. He knows his temple to be a rarely known Shinto shrine, but the situation reeks of deception. In a commanding voice, he urges the man to release the boy and make a hasty retreat now. Release the boy and run, now! He commands, his tone filled with urgency. There is an explosion. The form of Jonathan, or what appears to be him, catches fire. The illusion proves to be fatal, instantly killing the man. Two others frantically attempt to extinguish their burning clothes and fail. The two dogs, witnessing the presence of a massive enraged woman with black fox ears, sense the danger. Kyofu, smirking with a hint of malice, mocks that Tanaka and his pet whore couldn't resist meddling. The two Akitas bravely charge at Kyofu, but unlike Lady Tamamo, she shows no fear of the dogs. With an eerie calmness, she extends her hands from her uchikaki sleeves, transforming them into fox-like claws and tear into the dogs, ending their lives. Their yelps of pain echo through the air, leaving Emiko stunned and horrified. The remaining 5 men of her team attempt to shoot the kitsune, but her tails fan out behind her, radiating a menacing aura. One man collapses due to succumbing to a mixture of shock and mental trauma from witnessing something beyond his comprehension. The other 4 men panic, their lives swiftly consumed. Tanaka, in a rare moment of sheer terror, gazes upon Kyofu, his expression just showing how horrified he is. Excuse me. The old man gestures urgently for Emiko to move. Swallowing her fear, she swiftly draws a tanto from her junihito sleeve, his gleaming blade ready for action. In her other hand, she tightly grips a wakizashi, prepared for the imminent confrontation. As the folds of her junihito fall open, a chilling revelation is unveiled. The interior lining bears an eerie skull pattern, adorned with countless screaming faces within its haunting embrace. The lining of it, of course. Kyofu, the enraged kitsune, tilts her head in curiosity as Emiko focuses her energy. With a sudden burst of shadowy essence, the air becomes thick with darkness, temporarily disorienting the formidable kitsune turned Nogitsune. Seizing the opportunity, Tanaka expertly exploits the distraction. He vanishes from sight, only to reappear silently behind Kyofu, his black katana poised to strike at her unprotected back. However, the kitsune's 9 tails erupt in a blaze of black fire, fiercely guarding her vulnerable form. Tanaka's attack is met with searing resistance as its blade meets the inferno, resulting in a devastating burn that sends him crashing to the ground. Writhing in agonizing pain, he curls inward, his body consumed by the relentless flames. Meanwhile, Emiko, determined to contribute to the battle, hurls a throwing blade from the concealed folds of her junihito sleeve. With astounding speed and precision, Kyofu's hand morphs into a fox's paw, effortlessly snatching the blade out of the air. In a swift and fluid motion, she hurls it back towards Emiko, the blade finding its mark on her neck. The woman staggers back, a grotesque gurgle escaping her lovely lips as she desperately claws at her own throat, her face contorted in excruciating agony. Kyofu, now weakened from her intense confrontation with the relentless duo, who can actually wield that kind of magic, not just mere people, but immortal beings, drops to one knee. The remnants of her waning powers flicker around her, evidence of the tremendous effort exuded in the battle against these fierce supernatural adversaries. The mission? Successful. Tanaka grins weakly as he finally uses his magic to heal his burned flesh. His voice is strained as he manages to speak. Kyofu's fury intensifies as the man speaks. All we were meant to do was provide a distraction. Her head elongates, transforming into a full-fledged fox's head. She demands an explanation, her voice seething with anger, in a bestial tone. What do you mean by that? You, with all your power, you're nothing more than a hot-headed infant compared to me. That is what I mean by that. Emiko, utilizing the stolen key trapped within her Junihito, channels its restorative energies to heal herself. A smug smirk plays across her lips as she reaches into the shadowy folds of her robes. With a swift motion, she tosses a specially crafted net over the bewildered and enraged Kyofu. The net, blessed by the revered abbot priest of the Shan clan in China, ensnares not only Kyofu's voluminous tails, but also her entire body, containing her within its confines. Leaning towards her enemies, tears well up in her eyes. Kyofu's, that is. Please, don't take my kitsune no Esa away from me. The man's features temporarily soften, a hint of regret flickering into his eyes, but driven by his mission, he resolutely plunges his katana into Kyofu's side, piercing her liver. The woman screams in agony. Pain overwhelming her, she falls unconscious beneath the tightly secured net. From within the temple, one of Emiko's men emerges, carrying the real Jonathan, who fights fiercely, struggling against his captor. You have to remember, this kid is maybe, he's small, but he's strong. Acting swiftly, Tanaka produces a cloud of powder, blowing in the boy's face, rendering him unconscious. With their mission seemingly accomplished, the scene is now shrouded in an eerie silence, save for the unconscious bodies of Kyofu and Jonathan, held captive by the cruel ministrations of Tanaka. Tanaka sighs heavily and carefully hands the unconscious boy over to Emiko, who cradles him gently in her arms. Concern gently etches her face as she looks up at her mentor, her voice filled with worry. Are you sure? Are you certain the boy won't come to harm? Physically, he will remain unharmed, but in every other aspect, I cannot guarantee his safety. And what will become of the nightmare we just barely defeated? The net will keep her contained. In due time, I'll destroy her heart, her brain, and the liver I pierced. One no kitsune of such power is more than enough. The man is lying, and Emiko knows it, but she knows that her mentor is not one that plans things lifetime. How can I say this? She knows that he is one that plans things lifetimes in advance at times. She knows not to ask again. Tanaka's anger flares when he finds, as he enters his lair and he finds Lady Tamamo seated in his chair. A magnificent Junihito cascades around her, her hair pooling at the base of the chair, and her tails found out in an imposing display. He clenches his fists, but maintains a composed demeanor as he confronts her, reminding her that they could have easily defeated her instead. She's unfazed. She fans herself leisurely with her ornate fan and smirks, her eyes filled with mischief. Ah, but the victory is mine, regardless of who fell first. Now, where is my broken one? I demand him now. Emiko silent but vigilant, approaches with the unconscious Jonathan Swanson in her arms. Excuse me. She raises her voice, demanding to know what fate awaits him. Tamamo's fan is placed delicately into her voluminous sleeve as she takes the boy from Emiko's grasp. Drawing him in close, she leans in and inhales his scent, her haughty demeanor dissolving in a moment, quite literally in an instant. Surprising both Tanaka and Emiko, Tamamo trembles with a rush of emotions, clutching the boy tightly, the massive sleeves of her robes almost concealing him. She buries her face into his neck, openly displaying her vulnerability. Tears well up in her eyes as she holds him, her previous arrogance replaced by genuine care and affection. The sight leaves Tanaka and Emiko in stunned silence, witnessing a side of Lady Tamamo they never expected to see. Gathering herself quickly, she declares that she will indeed reward Tanaka and Emiko handsomely for their services. However, their immediate desire is for the destruction of the one known as Kyofu. He assures her that it has already been planned for the outcome. She maintains her regal composure, holding the unconscious boy in her arms while fanning herself with her free hand. With a subtle nod, she acknowledges Tanaka's influence and formidable power, assuring him that he need only ask and she will personally curse anyone who dares oppose him. As if growing weary of their presence, she rises gracefully from the chair, cradling John's form tenderly against her own. In a mesmerizing display, she vanishes in a burst of scorching fire, taking John with her, leaving Tanaka and Emiko astounded by her swift departure. Emiko lets out a weary sigh and voices her expectation of receiving some form of payment for her service, for her services on her end. He assures her that he will indeed share more of his forbidden knowledge with her, but cautions her that she must exercise patience. Standing up, she gathers the cursed Jinahito, the centuries-old robe that she has been bound to, around herself. With a determined expression, she addresses Tanaka, stating that she will be holding him to his promise. Without further delay, she steps to a portal, shrouded in darkness, leaving the old man alone with his thoughts. In that rare moment, a rare flicker of conscience pricks the man's mind. He knows that his schemes are playing out for the long term, but he finds himself praying silently that Lady Tamamo will not bring harm upon the boy who has become entangled in all of their affairs. John blinks, his vision still blurry, as he looks up to the woman holding him. He tries to make a sound, but no words escape his lips. His eyes fill with confusion and fear as he gazes at Lady Tamamo, her eyes gleaming with mischief and insanity. Her laughter echoes through the room as she strokes his hair gently. She leans closer, her voice a soft whisper. "My dear, there is no need to speak. I know who you are. You are my broken one." His eyes widen, and he tries to struggle free from her grip. A mixture of panic and frustration filling his expression. He desperately searches for a way to communicate and to understand what she means and why she claims him as her own. He doesn't know her. He's trapped in silence. He can only gaze at her, silently pleading for answers. The woman's fiery tails, those red tails of hers, flicker and dance crimson behind her, casting an ethereal glow around the room. Her eyes ablaze with intensity, fixed upon John. As she tilts her head with a gentle sigh, she speaks softly, her voice carrying a mixture of longing and ancient knowledge. "I cannot recall your past self's name, my broken one," she murmurs, her fingers tracing delicate patterns on his skin. The flames of her tail sway like a mesmerizing fan behind her. "Yet I have searched for you relentlessly over 2,000 years, drawn to your essence across time." Her thick black hair cascades around them both as she cradles him in her lap, her grip suddenly tightening as she grasps his hair and tilts his head back. She inhales deeply, inhaling his scent, savoring it, before releasing him and gently trailing her fingers across his throat. I am aware of the damage inflicted upon you, she whispers, her voice tinged with a mixture of compassion and fury. She says this, the one who took your voice shall have hers snatched away, forever silenced, as retribution for what she's done to you. Her eyes narrow with determination, an insatiable thirst for what she believes is justice. The flames behind her intensify, casting flickering shadows across the room as she vows to protect him and unleash her wrath on those who have harmed him. John's eyes silently implore about Kyofu. His unspoken question hanging in the air. Tamamo, being what she is, one of her kind, they're all attuned to the depths of the soul. She takes a moment to contemplate before responding. I wish there was another path, my broken one. But among my kind, we do not share our mates. It is simply our way. She acknowledges her own selfishness, her desire to claim him as her own, irrespective of what others may believe or think. Her fiery tails sway gently behind her as she continues, her voice filled with conviction. I care not for the opinions of younger kits who question my claim, she declares, her voice resolute. I, Lady Tamamo, knows the truth. You are my broken one, and my connection to you will always be recognized. Her voice carries madness in unwavering certainty, as if she is proclaiming a universal truth, despite the complexities and challenges they may face. This creature's conviction remains steadfast, anchored in her unwavering belief in their connection. John adamantly shakes his head, refusing to be a part of her plans. Surprisingly, she remains composed, unfazed by his refusal. She gently pets his cheek, her touch affectionate, before the intricate designs on her jonahito begin to radiate a vibrant glow. They come alive, depicting various birds and cranes in motion. Opening her fan with a snap, she begins fanning herself, her gaze fixed upon him. My dear, your mind is a fortress of strength. Yet even though I possess the power to bend your will or leave illusions, I refuse to resort to such methods, she says softly. She continues to caress his cheek with a fan, her voice soothing and persuasive. She reveals that her previous broken one had also resisted, expressed the same defiance, but it mattered little in the grand scheme of things. With a confident air, she explains her intention to lead Japan once more under her influential reign with him by her side. It is destiny, my broken one, she says gently, her eyes gleaming with conviction. Together, we shall shape the nation and reign over its people. Your strength and presence will only strengthen my influence. Tamamo's words convey a sense of inevitability, as if the path before them is preordained. While she acknowledges his resistance, she remains steadfast in her belief that their union is destined and essential for the realization of her grand ambitions. Tamamo raises an eyebrow, intrigued by John's proposition, as she attentively senses the message conveyed by his soul. Curiosity lingers in her eyes, and she asks him to elaborate on his offer. With a determined gaze, his spirit speaks to her. He pleads with her not to harm Kyofu, and he promises his unwavering loyalty and obedience in return. Her laughter fills the air, her head tilting back while her fox ears twitch with amusement. She finds his proposition amusing, but she also senses the sincerity behind his words. You truly know how to make an enticing offer, my broken one. While I could easily dismiss your request, I find myself drawn to fulfill it. A mischievous glimmer dances in her eyes. As she contemplates the fate of Kyofu, she reveals her intention to keep the younger kitsune alive, not out of mercy, but rather as a means to teach her a valuable lesson. Her expression darkens as she asserts that Kyofu must understand the weight of daring to challenge her greatness and the consequences of what she has lost. With an intense surge of affection, Tamamo pulls John in a tight embrace, her voluminous sleeves nearly engulfing him. The massive 9 tails coil around them both, creating an intimate but stifling atmosphere. As she presses her lips against his, a deep and passionate kiss ensues, sealing their agreement and affirming their connection to the embrace of her overwhelming power. Dr. Amanda Swanson stands before Samuel Dyson, her face filled with defiance and weariness. Dyson's mocking laughter fills the air, devoid of any humor. As he gazes down at her, the woman confronts him, questioning him why he's returned and expressing her belief that their conversation was over. The man's expression hardens as he reveals the news of Jean Dine's destruction at the hands of Tamamo. He flips on a nearby television screen, showcasing reports of political scandals within the Japanese parliament and various organizations. The Prime Minister's involvement in the investigation is highlighted, indicating the widespread impact of the scandal. This is just Tamamo's influence, not even her direct involvement in things, yet. Amanda's voice carries a sense of sarcasm as she asks what relevance this has to do with her, as she thought Dyson was done with her. The man's response is chilling, his tone devoid of any empathy. He discloses that Tamamo brutally eviscerated Kate, with her liver being consumed as a grim testament to the kitsune's power. He further explains that he was given a simple chance to preserve his own life, with only one condition. He must hand Dr. Swanson to Tamamo at dawn. Her eyes widen. Yes, this bitch is getting hers, thank God, finally. Moving on. A mixture of shock and apprehension wash over her. She coughs, attempting to regain her composure before inquiring of the nature of the arrangement. The man, quite literally just explains. He has to sacrifice himself, her, to the kitsune, and he has no desire to die. He simply plans on leaving her at the mercy of Tamamo. Please, I beg you, don't do this. I'll do anything. You want me? You can have me, even if it means sparing my life. Just do whatever. You offer yourself? What could a dried-up, child-abusing bitch like you have that would interest me? It wasn't my fault. I didn't mean for any of this to happen. There has to be another way. Oh, you poor, clueless woman. It was your actions that broke your own son, the source of the ancient prophecy. What are you talking about? Even a foreigner like me, a black man, knows about it. The prophecy is known as the 9 Tails of Darkness, you stupid bitch. It foretells the rise of a broken soul, the catalyst, for the 2 foxes who will shroud Japan in darkness. I never intended for any of this. I didn't know. Your ignorance is no excuse. It was your son who drew them together. Your actions that lured Tamamo, the same one who murdered Kate, who I considered a daughter. That can't be true. I didn't want anyone to get hurt, you stupid bitch. It was all because of you. And now, I'll gladly offer you to Tamamo in exchange for my own pathetic life. There's got to be another way. I'll do anything. It's too late for that. Prepare yourself for what's to come. She'll have you as her prize tomorrow at dawn. That morning, she was dumped unceremoniously near the once sealed area. As she glanced around in terror, her eyes widened in both fear and fascination. The air around her seemed to have a soft, enchanting melody, resonating in a haunting beauty that no human voice could replicate. Against her instincts, she found herself inexorably drawn to the ethereal tune, an irresistible force pulling her towards its source. Following the captivating melody, the terrified doctor cautiously navigated her way through the hidden path towards an ancient castle. Though seemingly abandoned, its majestic structure stood as a testament to its former grandeur. Concealed from prying human eyes, as she approached, the harmonious notes seemed to grow stronger. guiding her steps towards an encounter she both longed for and dreaded. There, amidst the crumbling beauty, emerged a figure of unparalleled elegance. The woman's presence commanded attention, her 12 layers of junihito cascading like a waterfall around her, each delicate silk garment or layer sweeping the ground with a whispering grace. Her long obsidian hair mirrored the night itself, flowing freely through the earth below. With a deliberate movement, she raised her hand to her mouth, veiling her lips behind the enfolded sleeve. An enigmatic gesture that added an aura of mystery to her already captivating presence. She approached the trembling doctor, her words containing a blend of curiosity and restrained power. It was in a voice that resonated with both authority and otherworldly charm. She calmly addressed Dr. Swanson, her words carrying a weight beyond mortal comprehension. "Do you recognize who I am, Dr. Swanson?" "Yes, I know who you are. Please, I beg you, spare my life. This was never my fault." As the woman just starts screaming and weeping, she raises an eyebrow. "What do you mean it's not your fault?" "He was always a handful. I just lost control." Tamamo chuckles and fans herself with her fan, which is different fox designs upon the intricate folds of the fan. "I am very aware of the curses of the one who calls herself Kyofu leveled upon you," she says, amusement lacing her words. "And with your luck, it seems to have worked." She dramatically folds her fan and shakes her head in mock sympathy. "And it seems to fall to me, Lady Tamamo, to end the life of such filth as yourself. This is all Jonathan's fault. I never should have had him. I should have had him killed before birth when I had the chance. That's what I should have done," she screams. The woman's expression turns cold, and with one swift motion, she grabs Amanda by the throat, lifting her into the air. Her beautiful face elongates into a massive vulpine head as her tails fan out behind her. "Indeed, there will be an ending," she says softly, "but it won't be of my broken one." The claws on her hand stretch forth, and then Dr. Swanson knows no more. Jonathan silently looks around the old temple, this massive castle-like structure. His curiosity is very evident as he finds clothing laid out. He picks up a kimono and tries to put it on. Lady Tamamo laughs, not mocking, but genuinely amused. "Ah, my dear boy, wearing the garments right over left is for the dead," she says as she straightens out the kimono for him and helping him put it on properly. "I plan on my broken one being alive for a long time." He nods his thanks, feeling a mixture of embarrassment and gratefulness. "You will learn and grow for the plans I have for you," she says, her voice possessing a tint of possessiveness that sends a shiver down the boy's spine. He looks at her, his eyes filled with sorrow and pain, silently conveying that he sensed his mother's death, and he heard her screams outside. The woman nods silently, understanding the weight of his emotions. "I had to send that vile abomination to the void, and not fast enough." His heart aches with conflicting emotions. Despite the abuse and horror that woman put him through, she was still his mother. The pain is immense. He's still too damaged to shed tears. Tamamo's expression turns into a scowl, and Jonathan feels the comforting embrace of the nine tails enveloping him, pushing him into the kitsune's embrace completely. "Right here, my broken one. The reason you cannot cry is the very reason I sent that woman to the void." Later on, he explores various parts of the massive temple and stumbles upon a shelf displaying a collection of masks. Some are crafted to resemble human faces, while others depict fox-like visages. She observes his curiosity. Tamamo, that is. She tilts her head in amusement before explaining. These masks represent how humans perceive and try to explain our ability to disguise ourselves among them. She elegantly fans herself, a mischievous smile playing upon her lips. She adds, "But you see, my broken one, there is nothing as complex as needing such trinkets for us. For a kitsune, changing forms is as effortless as taking a simple stroll." He absorbs his information, his expression thoughtful as he contemplates the innate shape-shifting power of the kitsune. He finally tilts his head, silently questioning the significance of the woman's unehito and its apparent special properties. "My dear, all kitsune possess the innate knowledge of enchanting their clothing. It is a common skill that accompanies with the growth of our ninth tail." She gracefully adjusted the intricate designs of the fabric, shimmering faintly, and she continues. "Over the years, I have imbued many of my garments with enchantments, enhancing their qualities and granting them unique properties." He listens to her, obviously piqued with curiosity. He runs his hand along the exquisite fabric of Tamamo's garments, tracing back the intricate designs that depict graceful cranes and beautiful orchids, the contrasting black and white colors mesmerizing him. She watches him with amusement, her fan fluttering, as she laughs softly. "Do you find it pleasing to the eyes?" she asks, her voice carrying a tone of vanity. He gulps nervously, but he nods. He's not going to lie to her. He can't deny the beauty of the garment before him. He knows he must play along as well as to buy time for his eventual escape. But he truly is telling the truth. He's drawn to its allure. She continues to fan herself. She leans closer to him, her voice softer and becoming more intimate. "Do you understand, my dear, just what makes you so special?" she inquires. He shakes his head, his eyes fixed on her. She caresses his chin gently. "It is your indomitable spirit, your unwavering loyalty, and your ability to overcome adversities," she says softly. Her voice is fixed with a mix of admiration and intrigue. "Such qualities would beckon Amaterasu herself, the goddess from the heavens, to take possession of your being." The young boy's emotions swirl within his own soul. It conflicts with his initial desire to escape and his growing connection to this woman. His fingers trace the patterns once more, the fabric becoming a tangible representation of their conversation. She observes him intently, her head tilting to the side as she senses the shift of his emotions. "I believe," she says, the mix of adoration and mischief in her eyes, "that you would thrive basking in my light than simply dwelling on the fabric I wear." Her words resonate with a tender longing. Before he can even fully process her words, she scoops him up into her arms, his heart racing with surprise. She enfolds him deep within the folds of her junihito, drawing him in closer as their lips meet in a deep, unexpected kiss. It is a passionate exchange that blurs the lines between captor and captive, leaving John both bewildered and strangely captivated. As their as their kiss deepens, Tamamo glimpses the memories John has shared through their passionate connection, the love he held and still holds for Kyofu shining through. Despite her jealousy and hidden animosity towards her fellow kitsune, she conceals it between a facade of desire. In the midst of their passionate exchange, the tips of one of her massive tails playfully tickles the boy's face, causing him to sneeze lightly. She responds with a quick sigh of laughter, her amusement very evident. With a swift motion, she snaps open her fan, her arm wrapped tightly around his waist. The delicate caress of the fan against his side, beneath the folds of his yukata, elicits a muted laugh from him. Folding her fan once more, She gazes into his eyes, seeing both confusion and an undeniable infatuation. You, my broken one, have brought me joy that has been absent for millennia. Her embrace tightens, her sleeves enveloping him. As her face nestles into the crook of his neck, her ebony hair spills over them both. He tenderly rubs her right fox ear, feeling a mixture of confusion and adoration. It is in this unexpected moment the bringer of chaos and mayhem finds herself adoring a mortal human boy of 19. Their connection forged amidst a world of chaos and unpredictability. In the depths of a desolate cell, Samuel Dyson sits in darkness. His gaunt frame a heavy reflection of the torment he endures. The weight of his failures weighs heavily upon him, etching lines of exhaustion and defeat upon his face. Turning into a visage of worn like weathered stone, he closes his eyes, his hands trembling as they bear witness to his shattered ambitions. And within the halls of the Jindan Corporation, the blame for Kyofu's escape and the insulting chaos unleashed by Lady Tamamo's reign of terror falls upon his shoulders. The weight of guilt and responsibility gnaws at his soul. Each accusation like a relentless wave, crashing against his fragile psyche. The once mighty corporation now labels him as the embodiment of failure, the scapegoat for the horrors that have unfolded. Outside his cell, the island cluster of Japan shudders under the weight of Tamamo's influence. Dark tales ripple through the air, echoing the stories of mothers driven to madness, and maternal instincts twisted and perverted by the enchanting allure of the beautiful fox spirit. Tragic accounts emerge of young men disappearing only to be discovered later, their bodies torn asunder by a formidable and savage creature, an embodiment of the monstrous vulpine. He is acutely aware that Kyofu lies incapacitated, a prisoner to Tamamo's machinations. He knows the atrocities committed are orchestrated by the cunning creature, who manipulates and revels in the chaos she has unleashed upon the world. Or at least, the nation of Japan itself. But definitely much further at this point. The knowledge of his own role in this twisted web of destruction fills him with a bitter sense of despair. In the confines of his cell, a man once of ambition and power finds himself shackled by his own guilt and the consequence of his actions. Inside the confines of his cell, he's met with a very strange act of kindness from the guards who oversee his captivity. They recognize the unjust nature of his imprisonment and treat him with a level of respect uncommon in a private prison. It is in one of those moments that an elderly man, adorned in a dignified suit and tie, is granted entry as a visitor. Samuel observes the man's appearance, sensing an air of mystique that surrounds him. Though unfamiliar with the sorcerer's name, the recognition of his presence stirs a deep understanding within the man that this individual is far from ordinary. He asks the man cautiously, "What do you want?" "We share a common enemy, one that must be eradicated." The words hang in the air, their weight heavy with the weight of purpose and a shared quest for not justice, but revenge. And with this, the man tilts a brow, or perks a brow. He tilts his head to the side. Why would someone like you want Lady Tamamo contained or eliminated? It makes no sense. That vile sorceress has brought shame upon me, humiliating me in ways unimaginable, unforgivable. Furthermore, I know she was responsible for the deaths of your associate, and the woman who held a place akin to your daughter, Kate Holloway. She had a lovely accent, I must admit. How do you know about all this? I exist beyond mortal comprehension, but the deal is within your grasp, Samuel. How will you seize this opportunity? The smirk plays upon his lips as he decides to weigh the risks. He knows he may be working with a devil, but so much has already been taken from him by one. You have a deal, my friend. This is an example of the horrors Tamamo has been unleashing. The drifter is tired, exhausted. He sees a cabin, an old abandoned affair. Or at least it seems that way as he walks through the woods. He's hungry, fatigued. He sees a beautiful woman. Beautiful, stunning. She's tiny, not even maybe hardly 5 foot, if that. He looks down at her, and the woman seems so friendly, so nice. She offers him food, tofu, rice, good food. And with this, suffice to say, he falls into a sleep afterward. He awakens. The unnamed drifter looks up in horror. He sees the true form of Lady Tamamo, standing over him. He stumbles back, clutching his stomach in pain. She speaks, her tone dripping with mockery and cruelty. She scolds him for being rude and throwing up her food. What did you do to me? What did I eat? The woman continues fanning herself. Oh, my dear drifter, you consumed a delicacy fit for the likes of you. But it seems you lack the proper appreciation. The drifter looks down to the mass he vomited, realizing he regurgitated poop, and leaves. He stares at Lady Tamamo in utter shock, his voice trembling. What kind of sick trick is this? Why would you do this? Her tail's gracefully fanning out. The woman responds. You see, dear drifter, rudeness should never go unpunished. And now, it is time for you to learn your lesson. The drifter screams, pierces the darkness, as Lady Tamamo's cruel punishment unfolds. John awakens in silence, feeling the soreness of his body. He notices the marks and scratches, evidence of some kind of encounter in his sleep. He looks around. He realizes he's still in Lady Tamamo's dwelling, covered by a heavy silken blanket. He begins to search for his yukata. He hears footsteps approaching, accompanied by the swishing of silk against the stone floor. He turns his gaze and sees Lady Tamamo standing before him, bringing a truly decent meal. Basically tofu and eggs as well as rice. Like I said, no pooper leaves this here, at least with this one situation. He looks up at her in gratitude. She caresses his cheek, urging him to eat. He begins to enjoy the food. He finally tilts his head in confusion. And with this she nods slowly, a smirk on her lips. She explains that she decided his yukata since he wouldn't be needing it anymore. His eyebrow raises inquisitively, prompting her to pull him closer, enveloping him in her junihito, pulling the sashes tightly around them. She explains with a mischievous smirk that she enjoys his form too much to have it conceals. And with this, he rolls his eyes and playfully pokes her. Her laughter fills the air, genuine happiness radiating from her. Tanaka leads Sam deeper into his lair. A rare honor reserved for those with unique talents, or who he trusts. Follow me. He says, motioning Sam forward. He leads him to a vault and it opens to reveal a small black box. Kyofu, lying unconscious with Tanaka's katana still lodged in her liver. This is the one that is Kyofu. She's killed as many as Tamamo. It's a very bad idea. Besides, why free her now? You obviously imprisoned her in the first place. And with this, Tanaka explains that sometimes one has to make a deal with the devil itself to kill another devil. And with this, he speaks finally. You have to understand something. I have always been one. to play the long game. I was forced to imprison Kyofu, but I knew later that I would have her here to stop the evil that she was doing. She is pure evil. If she is not stopped, she will destroy Japan as we know it. I have done terrible things, my boy, but I have no desire to see my nation die. Tanaka checks to ensure that the warded collar is still securely around Kyofu's neck. He explains this collar keeps her in her fox form, which Samuel definitely approves of, considering firsthand the power she possesses. With a firm grip, Tanaka pulls his katana from the creature's side, causing the kitsune to awaken with a snarl. Tanaka raises his hand, and the collar glows with visible glyphs. As he sternly commands her to cooperate, he explains that him and Imiko had no choice in their actions, and that if the tables were turned, she would have done the same thing to them. The fox gradually calms itself, tilting its head in response to Tanaka's words. I do not care for your problems. I will never forgive the debt that you owe me. I understand that. But I think both of us know that Tamamo is a bigger problem than any of our personal grudges. She's a threat to all of Japan, and we need to stop her now. I have no love for Tamamo. I never have. But why should I help you? What's in it for me? The one chance to get your precious fox bait back. If you cooperate with us, we will help you get what you want. Fine. I will help you. But the moment you betray me, I will tear your throats out. The collar is carefully removed from the woman's neck, and as it falls away, she undergoes a majestic transformation, growing in size and radiating her true power. Of course, she's her normal 8 foot tall, her fur glistening with an otherworldly aura. She very gracefully retrieves her uchikaki and drapes it around herself, her voice dripping with arrogance. Lowly dogs, such as you, have no business looking upon me. She sneers, her voice laced with, superiority. Enough with the theatrics, Kyofu. If we want to achieve our goals, we must act swiftly and decisively. Now, fight. But remember, I am no ally of yours. Our interests simply align for now. With their unlikely alliances forged, the unlikely trio prepares to face the formidable threat of Lady Tamamo, each driven by their own motivations and the knowledge that failure is not an option. As the state of Japan plunges in turmoil, with scandals rocking the political landscape, and of course, protests gripping the streets, Lady Tamamo, she revels in her power and influence. She gazes at Jonathan, fanning herself gracefully, and poses a question, laced with intrigue. My dear broken one, do you feel anything for me at all? She inquires, her tone expectant. He takes a moment to write his response, expressing he does care for her, but clarifying that he does not love for her. He emphasizes his respect for her and his unwillingness to deceive her. She nods slowly, a tinge of sadness in her eyes. I appreciate your honesty, she murmurs softly. I believe that in time, my love for you will be reciprocated. Patience is the key. You're right that love doesn't work that way. It can't be forced or expected. He tries to convey that his feelings aren't going to change. She smiles sadly, her expression tinged with self-awareness. Many men claimed they would die for me. And they did, but I felt no love for them. She confesses. Perhaps this is karmic justice. But your care for me, despite all I've done, is more than I could hope for. I am grateful. Though her malevolence is evident, there's a flicker of understanding within her. She obviously knows right from wrong, and in her own twisted way, she understands the complexity of emotions and the limitations of her own desires and needs. Samuel calmly surveys the contents of the vault, his eyes scanning over the assortment of powerful weapons. He selects two pistols and a large caliber rifle, loading them over with precision before stashing them in a bag. He slings the rifle over his shoulder, readying himself for the upcoming battle. Tanaka's voice cuts through the air, urging them to hasten their preparations. He dismisses the effectiveness of mortal weapons, claiming they will do little to slow down Tamamo. Kyofu, silent and composed, finds herself with her fan, her majestic tails, those nine tails, swaying gracefully behind her. Samuel, unmoved by their skepticism, expresses his belief that he may not survive this fight. He acknowledges the possibility of his own demise, not the probability, stating that if it could bring them, any of them, some semblance of redemption and reconciliation with whatever higher power exists, he's willing to face it. And it is that moment right there, that moment, his words strike a word or a chord within Tanaka. The man feels a sense of admiration and respect within the sorcerer. This sense of respect for this man, this mortal fellow. He recognizes the depths of Samuel's resolve and is moved by his unwavering determination. They come to a colossal burial shrine, a resting place for numerous lifeless bodies. The air is heavy with the weight of death. Kyofu, composed and commanding, gestures for her companions to step back. Samuel asks point blank, "What do you plan to do here, Kyofu?" "Ah, my dear Samuel, you are about to witness the power of necromancy firsthand." With an otherworldly transformation, her lovely human face contorts into that of a vulpine head, her flowing hair becoming a swirling cloak of living shadows. A spine-chilling shriek pierces the air, reaching towards the heavens and beneath the soil. Twisted figures emerge from the macabre beings who were once men, who had struck dark bargains with the Nogitsune, now bound to fulfill their debts, even in death. Returning to her human form, her eyes burn with determination as she declares, "Now, with these loyal companions from beyond the grave, we might just stand a chance against that bitch, and we can get my foxbait back." Of course, that term, I think, Catarero Mono, that's what it means, foxbait. It's obvious, it's a pet name. Obviously, when she said she was going to eat him up, she meant it, of course, in not a violent kind of way. Unbeknownst to Tamamo, her beloved Jonathan indulges her desire for pleasure, not out of true allegiance, but rather as a means to bide his time. The boy, though maintaining his facade, maintains steadfast in his loyalty to Kyofu. Tamamo, deeply infatuated and consumed by her own desires, fails to notice the imminent threat approaching her desolate abode. Excuse me. Within the confines of her once sacred dwelling, where countless lovers and victims have met their fate, she senses the gathering presence of a formidable force. A myriad of unseen eyes watch from the shadows, their gaze fixed upon her, the alluring kitsune, lost in her own world of power and adoration, gazes into Jonathan's eyes and tenderly caresses his cheek, a hint of sorrow tainting her smile. With an air of resignation, she confesses that she had anticipated Kyofu's arrival. She nonchalantly dismisses the impending confrontation, believing that a victory is assured. Little does she know that Jonathan's compliance is merely a facade, concealing his true intentions. In her arrogance, She fails to discern the controlled responses from the young boy, mistakenly assuming that he is fully devoted to her cause. With an air of regal grace, she stands before him, her presence exuding a sense of superiority. She takes deliberate steps, calculated, as if preening herself for the impending battle. As her layered Junahito slips from her body, a stunning transformation takes place. In an eruption of magnificent power, her once lovely form morphs into a colossal creature, a fearsome, nine-tailed fox, its fiery red fur blazing like the sun. This monstrous manifestation dwarfs even the size of a Siberian tiger, his imposing figure dominating the space around it. With a snarl that echoes through the chambers, the colossal fox unleashes its true might. A towering wall of immense flames erupts, encircling Jonathan's location. The inferno, though while fierce and formidable, miraculously avoids harming him. Instead, acting as a confining barrier, trapping him within its scorching embrace. Outside the confines of her palace, the colossal fox steps forward, confronting a sight that would send shivers down the spines of any mortal. Countless zombies and demonic hordes under the influence of Kyofu's wicked influence advance relentlessly towards her. They surge forward, a relentless tide, malevolence and corruption, their eyes devoid of any semblance of humanity. This is Kyofu's calling card, a relentless onslaught of twisted fiends summoned to extinguish Tamamo's reign of darkness. A piercing screech echoes through the air as Tamamo unleashes her fury. The very souls of the men she has seduced and consumed now twisted and contorted, materializing into haunting, undead spirits. These ethereal apparitions take the shape of formidable warriors, samurai, and a myriad of other fallen souls. With spectral blades in hand, they rally to the defense of their enigmatic mistress. The battlefields becomes a twisted, surreal spectacle as the undead spirits clash with the relentless hordes of twisted creatures. Their ghostly forms move with ethereal grace, their attacks imbued with an otherworldly power. However, despite their valiant efforts, the forces of Kyofu and Tanaka's sorcerous magics prove to be overwhelming. Even with the apparitions of long-deceased emperors, once claimed by Tamamo, muster their spectral strength to resist the dark forces. However, the resistance falters against the relentless onslaught. The undead hordes, driven by Kyofu's unyielding rage and fueled by Tanaka's own formidable sorcery, push back the spectral warriors, inch by agonizing inch. The clash of supernatural powers creates an eerie symphony of swirling energies and desperate struggles. As the battle rages on, two foolish spectators, oblivious to the dangers unfolding, attempt to capture the chaos with their cameras. In a gruesome twist of fate, they become the targets of the undead warriors. The creatures tear them to pieces, their screams of terror cut short in a grisly display. Tamamo's eyes widen when she witnesses the fate of the helpless onlookers. She turns her fate towards Tanaka, who stands with an eerie calmness amidst the chaos, his lips revealing them sharp, predatory teeth as he smiles with a vicious, sinister grin. He unleashes mocking laughter. "You always were a fool, Tamamo. You never played the long game, blinded by your own arrogance. Enjoy the hells that I have planned for you, for your time is at an end." His words carry a chilling finality, hinting at the dark fate that he has in store for her. Kyofu, the imposing figure of a massive black-furred fox, reveals himself amidst the chaos. Though slightly smaller than Tamamo, her presence is no less formidable. With a thunderous snarl, she demands the return of Jonathan, her voice reverberating with a chilling menace. She promises a swift death if Tamamo complies, vowing to instead relish in the excruciating torment of slowly flaying her flesh for an eternity. Fueled by rage, Tamamo unleashes her wrath, conjuring fiery foxfire from her 9 majestic tails. Blazing inferno engulfs the surrounding area, incinerating everything or anyone in its path. However, Kyofu, in a display of uncanny agility, evades the scorching flames, leaping to the side with a grace that defies her size. The inferno ravages the landscape, consuming trees and reducing them to charred remnants. In a very daring move, she launches herself towards Tamamo, her burning claws the very essence that the vengeful fox cherishes the most, her face. The air crackles with intensity as the two powerful beings clash, their fury and determination clashing together in a cataclysmic showdown. In the midst of their ferocious confrontation, Tamamo's fury reaches its peak. With a frenzied howl, she lunges at Kyofu, those jaws clamping down on the other fox's shoulder, determined to leave a lasting mark. Despite Kyofu's resilience, Tamamo's size advantage allows her to overpower and pin her opponent to the ground. Her razor-sharp claws dig deep into Kyofu's sides. It's at that critical moment that Sam takes aim with his firearms, his voice filled with vengeance and anger. He releases a barrage of bullets, striking Tamamo squarely in the back amidst the chaos. His words ring out with unyielding determination. "This is for Kate, you bitch!" The deafening sound intertwines the growls and snarls of the foxes, creating a symphony of violence and retribution. The air is thick with tension as a battle between these supernatural forces rage on, each combatant driven by their own personal desires. Tamamo unleashes a torrent of scorching flames towards Samuel, engulfing him. The flames lick at his body, searing his flesh, and igniting his clothes, turning him into a living torch. Tamamo's sadistic smirk reflects her twisted amusement as she relishes the sight of a martyr consumed by the very flames of his defiance. Amidst the chaos, Tanaka swiftly takes the opportunity and strikes, that black katana finding its mark near Tamamo's liver. It moved too quickly. Although it's not a fatal blow, it definitely hurts. The creature staggers, her grip on power momentarily weakened. Kyofu, fueled by her own undying determination, charges with tremendous force. She slams her massive body against Tamamo. The result, the impact resonating through the air as the enemy's back collides with a jagged stone. The sheer force of the impact fractures Tamamo's spine, leaving her temporarily immobilized and writhing in agonizing pain, even though her abilities try to repair the damage immediately. The clash of these formidable beings reverberates through the surroundings, a battlefield painted with fire and blood. In the midst of the chaotic battlefield, Samuel's lifeless body lies motionless. The flames that once consumed him, extinguished. Yet amidst that grim scene, a surge of determination courses through John's veins, ignoring the danger that's still around him, as well as the inferno. Finally, due to the injuries of Tamamo, the inferno around him having stopped, he rushes out. And with this, he looks to the katana lodged in Tamamo's side and back. Kyofu, her jaws tightly clenched around Tamamo's throat, and she restrains the falling creature, using her immense strength to hold her down. The undead hordes that were once under Tamamo's command now fall under Kyofu's, and they aid in the effort to subdue their former master. With each passing moment, their grip on Tamamo tightens, their combined might overwhelming the once invincible fox. John reaches the epicenter of the struggle, his hand grasping the hilt of the katana. His face bears a mixture of determination and sorrow, knowing that his motions or his actions will bring an end to Tamamo's madness. With a resolute twist, the blade tears through her flesh, causing a ripple of pain to traverse through her body. In that moment, their eyes meet, and a flicker of unexpected emotions passes between them. Her eyes reflect not only shock, but perhaps a tinge of gratitude, acknowledging the boy who has brought an end to her madness and torment. As Kyofu exerts her dominance, she relentlessly and ruthlessly tears out Tamamo's heart, severing the final link of her existence. The kitsune's claws dig deep, piercing through the chest cavity and removing the pulsating organ, the symbol of the cruel and twisted power that once coursed within her being. Meanwhile, Tanaka draws a wakizashi from his side. With a swift and very quick stroke, he severs the creature's head from her body, ensuring that her reign of terror is forever silenced. When a final act of obliteration, he plunges the blade through her skull, and obliterating her brain, eradicating any remnant of the malevolence that once consumed her. The sorcerer then calmly pulls out a small jar, mumbling ancient arcane words. He burns the remains of Lady Tamamo's body, including her decapitated head. The ashes now flow freely through the air and then into the jar. She is contained, and hopefully, her ancient and tormented soul can finally know peace. As the life of her fallen enemy courses through her veins, Kyofu experiences a profound transformation. Her body shudders, convulsing with a mixture of raw power and overwhelming emotions. And with this she focuses. The majestic fox deity morphs back into her human form. Her jet black fur replaced by pale, glistening skin. Tears stream down her face, blending with the raindrops that now descend from the darkened heavens above. With a mixture of relief and sorrow, she embraces Jonathan, her naked form radiating a mix of vulnerability and strength. A multitude of tales envelop them both, intertwining and weaving a protective cocoon around their intertwined figures. The weight of her hair cascades around them like a heavy curtain, shielding them from the world and its troubles. In this moment of intimate solace, her focus narrows on Jonathan's presence. Drowning out the rest of the world, she clings to him tightly, seeking solace in his existence. It is as if nothing else matters in this tumultuous aftermath. Neither the silent figure of Tanaka nor the lifeless body of Samuel. Her sole purpose is to revel in the fact that Jonathan has survived, finding solace in their shared survival. Above them, the heavens weep, releasing a deluge of rain upon the blood-soaked battleground. Each droplet serves as a cleansing touch, washing away the remnants of darkness and sorrow that have tainted the land. The rain's rhythmic patter resonates with the serenity that now envelops Kyofu and Jonathan, providing a soothing backdrop to their shared moment of vulnerability and unspoken connection. In this soothing embrace, the world around them fades into insignificance. She finds solace in the boy's presence, their bond transcending the chaos that had unfolded. It continues to pour the rain with this very calm and measured demeanor. Tanaka gingerly lifts the charred remains of Samuel Dyson's body, his aged hand showing both strength and reverence. Kyofu, of course, observes the scene without a trace of grief or pity, for Samuel had been a source of torment and suffering in her existence. Yet she does acknowledge Tanaka's presence with a slight nod, an unspoken recognition passing through them, or between them. Her focus shifts to Jonathan, who stands shivering and exposed to the elements. Sensing his growing vulnerability to hypothermia, She concentrates her divine power, causing her very elegant uchikaki, to materialize around her form. Swiftly, she wraps a silk garment around both of them, herself and John, creating a protective barrier against the cold rain that continues to pour from the darkened sky. Her expression remains stoic, her eyes filled with a sense of purpose and determination. She conveys to Tanaka their debts are settled. Their paths intertwined in a dance of balance and retribution. With a single nod, she dismisses the sorcerer from her sights, his presence no longer required. Tanaka complies, utilizing his sorceress abilities to teleport himself and Samuel's lifeless body away, leaving the two of them amidst the desolate aftermath. The world around them seems to fade into the background. And Kyofu, of course, and Jonathan stand in the secluded enclave, sheltered beneath the protective folds of her uchikaki. The rain continues to cascade down, a symphony of melancholic melodies that serve as a backdrop of their shared moment of solace and introspection. Her enigmatic gaze lingers on John, her pale visions underlying a mixture of emotions, determination, and relief, an underlying tenderness that defies the chaos that has unfolded. Within the sanctuary of our garment's embrace, they find solace in each other's presence, their bond forged through trials and tribulations. They stand strong against the remnants of devastation. The rain, relentless in its downpour, serves as a cleansing force, washing away the remnants of darkness and pain, leaving behind the promise of renewal, a glimmer of hope for the future. Emiko watches in silence as Tanaka performs the last rites for Samuel Dyson. She finally masters the courage to ask, "Master Tanaka, why do you such respect for a man who caused so much harm to, Kyofu and to us?" "Emiko, I show respect to Samuel Dyson because he sacrificed himself to save Jonathan and to end Tamamo's reign of terror. He may have been misguided, but he recognized the error of his ways in the end and made a noble sacrifice. He had no family to mourn him, so it was only right we honor his memory." "Master Tanaka, why do you care about anyone? You always seem so cold and distant." "My dear Emiko, there is much you do not know about me, but let me tell you this. Perhaps even those of us who seem to have closed off our hearts can be moved by acts of selflessness, and bravery. It is these moments that remind us of the beauty and fragility of life." She nods, understanding the gravity of the man's words. She has an idea that this event will eventually set her on a path of love, hate, and redemption with Kiyomi, her eternal rival, as well as a young artist, Michael, of course, caught between them. Tanaka's ambition will be forged and realized. As they stand in the peaceful serenity of the temple in the Kanto, near the Kanto district, Jonathan presents Kyofu with a very delicately carved wooden fox. He offers it to her with a warm smile, a gesture of his affection. She takes the wooden fox in her hands, examining it with gentle fascination. Needless to say, she's sitting, and he's standing, so even despite the difference of their sizes, at this point, she looks up at him, a glimmer of emotion in her eyes. "It resembles me, doesn't it?" she remarks, a hint of vulnerability in her voice. He quickly writes a note, trying to lighten the mood. Well, except for the liberating sociopath part. She playfully smacks him upside the head, letting out a hearty laugh. She pulls him close, their lips meeting in a very deep and passionate embrace. When they part, she speaks softly, her words filled with love and determination. I'm going to travel the world, just as I did before, and this time, I'll show you wonders, marvels beyond my imagination. I have hearts to break, deals to make, and souls to claim. He writes, playfully, responding. Promises, promises. She embraces him tightly, her uchikaki enveloping them both, her 9 tails wrapping around them protectively. She laughs lightly. You will always be my light in the darkness, and for that, I am eternally grateful. He simply nods, feeling the warmth and comfort of her presence. They stand together, ready to face the world and its challenges, their bond strengthened and unbreakable. John, by this time, has received the small jar from Tanaka. It took a lot of suggesting, but Kyofu, of course, being a kitsune turned no-kitsune herself, understood the distress of unfinished business. He looks to a letter he wrote. It reads, Tamamo, I am sorry we did not meet under better circumstances. Perhaps, maybe, I would have been able to love you with all my being. Please forgive me for what I had to do. But there has been too much loss of life on all sides. Maybe one day, or another, lifetime, we will truly meet again. I pray that you find peace. Tamamo no Me. Signed, your broken one. The boy stands calmly where the killing stone had been used as a religious as well as tourist attraction for so long. He then opens the jar, letting the ashes hit the wind. He hears the words, thank you, whispered into his ear. There's a presence behind him. A small but beautiful woman steps behind him. She embraces him from behind for a moment. It is then that he feels the form embracing him grow in size. It is Kyofu. She had obviously snuck out here, deciding to be a little nosy and just, being herself. Her hair flowing through the wind, creating a shroud of darkness. He actually feels himself crying for the first time since he was 6, when he was robbed of his gift of speech. She lifts him off the ground, burying her face into his neck as she whispers silent words of Japanese, which he cannot understand. But he knows she is speaking deep words of love. And with this, she looks ahead, running a hand through John's hair, meeting the fading ashes that swiftly drift away into the next realm. Tamamo-san, Yukuri, Yasonde, Sosen, Nokuni, I, Akamesho. The end.